Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Got One for All at age 5. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku was walking home when he heard a noise coming from the big gray building covered in rust and moss. Izuku wasn't scared, he was a big boy now. His mother even trusted him to be on his own at the park when she needed to go to work. Izuku, you need to stay here. Lots of people have been hurt on the other side of the city, and I need to go and help. If it gets late, be careful going home. Ask Mrs. Tsukasa next door to help you inside if you need to. Izuku opened the big wooden door. It looked like it had been forced open recently, the wood in the middle split, and one door seemed larger than the other. He looked around. Hello, he asked quietly. He heard the noise again, a little louder, a wet cough followed by a heavy splatter. Izuku frowned in determination, stepping inside and peeking into the first room. Someone was hurt, and they needed help. He followed the quiet grunts and loud coughing until he found something that would haunt him forever. It was All Might, the world's greatest hero. He was slumped against the far wall, his lower half stained, and the same dark red liquid trickling from his radiant smile. Oh dear. Hello, young man. All Might coughed. Izuku raced forward. All Might, you're hurt. My mother is a nurse. She showed me how to use bandages and stuff, he said. The hero chuckled softly. It wasn't his usual boisterous laugh, but something kinder. All Might shook his head. I don't think even your mother could help me, amazing as she sounds, he said. Izuku began to cry. Are you? The hero sighed. I am. I'm terribly sorry, young man. I won, but at a great cost. Izuku sat before the hero, gazing up at him. A villain did this? Izuku asked, horrified. All Might nodded but smiled reassuringly. I was able to defeat him. We each dealt a significant blow to the other. I'm hiding from his minions in here, who will definitely try to exploit my weakness. However, I'm afraid the age of All Might is over. Izuku rubbed his tears away. Don't worry, All Might. I'll become the #1 hero and save everybody with a smile, just like you, he said. The hero chuckled fondly, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. I'm sure you'll make an excellent hero, young man. You certainly have the heart of one. Izuku sniffed, smiling at his idol. Everyone says I can't, that I'm too weak because I'm quirkless. I'm still going to do my best, though. If I can just save one person, I can be happy. All Might's eyes widened slightly. A child born quirkless was rare when I was a boy. You'll need to work hard, but I think you can do it. Do you want to hear a secret? Izuku nodded, hanging on every word. All Might smiled. I too was quirkless until I was 15. Izuku's eyes opened wide. You were like, me? He asked. All Might nodded. My quirk was not originally my own. Through the combination of a quirk that could be passed on and an energy stockpile quirk, my quirk, called One for All, was born. I am the 8th wielder of this great power. My master chose me for the same reasons I now choose you. Young man, would you carry my power and wield it to help others? He asked. Izuku's eyes were wide with amazement. A quirk that could be given to others? It was unheard of. But people could do a great many things. It wasn't impossible. The greenette nodded wordlessly. All Might smiled, shifting into a more upright position. Excellent. I'm sorry to place this burden on you, but you need to hear this. The man who injured me today is the one who created One for All. His name is All for One, and his quirk is the ability to steal and give quirks to and from others. You must keep One for All to yourself. You must train in secret until you have enough control over it to be safe. You cannot even tell your family. Many people, hero and villain alike, would hunt for you if they knew of One for All. You must remain quirkless until you are attending a hero school. Knowing this, do you still accept my power? It is a great and heavy responsibility. For that, I am sorry. The hero said. Izuku nodded, his expression one of determination. All Might sighed in relief, then looked seriously at the young boy. I'm afraid you're going to have to drink some of my blood or eat a strand of my hair. You need my DNA in your system to let me pass one for all on to you. I know it's not pleasant, but it must be done. Izuku made a face but wiped some of the blood from All Might's extended hand with his finger. He stared at his bloodied digit for a moment before liking it, shuddering slightly. All Might finally relaxed, his last duty complete. You must not use it until you build up strong muscles, my boy. Only a trained body can handle One for All's power. You'll also need to limit the amount you use. Think of One for All's energy as a vast lake. Once you train, you will only be able to use a teacup's worth of that energy. The amount will grow as you strengthen your body. Izuku nodded in understanding. I'll train really hard, All Might. I'll make sure One for All is used for good, he said. The hero smiled, using his unbloodied hand to pat the boy's hair. I'm sure you'll do excellently. Don't worry, I'll always be with you within One for All whenever you need guidance. Ask. All Might, the world symbol of peace and justice, passed away thinking of a tall, green-haired hero watching over a city, his cape swirling in the wind. He was smiling a bright, hopeful grin. Ever since that day, Izuku trained. He cried when All Might's funeral was broadcast to the world. He and his mother watched the TV with mountains of tissues around them. Inko approved of Izuku's training. Now that All Might was gone, villains were emerging more frequently. Inko wanted Izuku to be able to defend himself. At just 5 years old, Izuku focused on a healthy diet and ran around in the garden whenever he could. He timed himself running back and forth 5 times, gradually getting slightly quicker each day, by mere milliseconds. Inko signed Izuku up for self-defense classes. He learned the basics, how to disarm an opponent, throw a proper punch, dodge, and a few footwork techniques. Izuku first attempted to activate One for All on his 11th birthday. He had begun muscle training on his 10th birthday, so he was slightly stronger than the average 11-year-old. Izuku's arm burned, and he heard an echo of All Might's voice. Think of One for All's energy like a vast lake. Once you train, you can use a teacup's worth of that energy. If I can't use a teacup's worth yet, then how about a teaspoon? The pain suddenly disappeared, and Izuku stared at his arm. He could feel the energy coursing through his veins. The greenette smiled, then channeled the energy through his other arm too. He let the quirk go and flopped back onto his bed. It was tiring, but he could do it. It took Izuku a year of training to figure out the most efficient use. He channeled a serving spoon's worth of energy through his whole body, then leapt off the ground, pushing off a tree branch and bouncing between the trees. He used the forest that Bakugo and he had frequented as kids as a training ground. Nobody came here anymore because of the overgrowth blocking the footpaths. It was the perfect environment to train in an obstacle course, a group of training dummies, and strength training all in one. Izuku's strength training consisted of carrying bundles of sticks and small logs. He was saving Dagoba Beach for later as final preparation for the UA entrance exam. He had chosen UA for 2 reasons. First, because it was All Might's old school, and second, because it was the best hero school in the country. Izuku wanted to follow in his predecessor's footsteps as much as possible. All for One could still be out there. He needed to be ready. The news had covered All Might's final battle against a tremendously powerful villain, but the villain's body had never been found. He had been crippled by All Might at the very least, but with all his quirks, he was still a threat. Izuku pulled a bottle of water from his bag, taking a long drink. He sighed, checking the time on his phone. 15. It was time to head home. He had homework to finish and school tomorrow, so he had to complete his training. Izuku put his water bottle away and wandered through the forest, jumping over any overgrown weeds in his way. They were just minor inconveniences, but people still didn't come to the forest. The greenette opened his front door and greeted his mother, who was watching television, her hands clasped over her mouth. You may call me All for One. Izuku's head snapped to the TV. There was a man on the screen, wearing a dark suit. His head was covered by a menacing mask that seemed to have some kind of respiratory function. Izuku stared, feeling a chill run down his spine. I am not here for the masses, or any insignificant hero that thinks they can stand up to me. I want All Might's successor. I killed All Might 7 years ago and have spent these last 7 years healing from my wounds. However, All Might's quirk is special. It can be passed on from person to person. When transferred, it significantly boosts a person's quirk to godlike levels, as well as giving the user super strength. Whoever and wherever you are, please come forward. You can prevent a lot of suffering by handing the quirk over to me. Be you hero or civilian, you will not remain hidden for long. Farewell, Japan. It would be in your best interests to hand this person to me. It would be a shame if half the population got hurt. The broadcast cut out. Izuku remained afraid on the outside, mirroring his mother. On the inside, he was angry. How dare he threaten the people just to draw him out? You must keep one for all to yourself. You must train in secret. You must remain quirkless until you are attending a hero school. Izuku took a deep breath, calming his racing heart. Don't worry, All Might. I won't rise to his provocation. I'll need to think of something other than superpower to explain my quirk, though. Izuku was still thinking about it when he fell asleep that night. You could go with something like energy manipulation. You accumulated energy for 10 years, and you were only able to use it during the exam in a crisis. That's a pretty good idea for once. What do you think? A woman asked. All for One's broadcast had not provoked Izuku, but the hero community was another matter. They did not want to go against the man who killed All Might. The majority of heroes were deathly afraid. Only those in the top 100 and a few scattered in lower ranks were not daunted by the evil man. The number one hero of 7 years was holding a meeting with the top. If there is someone out there who wields All Might's quirk, they may be the only person who can stop this All for One, Endeavor said. If it is a hero, then they may have risen through the hero rankings quickly. We'll need to look at heroes that greatly improved in the year after All Might's death, Hawks said. Best Genius' eyes narrowed. If it is a civilian, they may not even have noticed. All Might could have given his quirk up in desperation to the first person he saw. We will need to look into quirk registry updates within 2 years of All Might's death. Ryukyu chimed in. This is All Might's quirk we're talking about. How long would such a power take to master? How long would mastering a second quirk take on top of the boost to their original quirk? Endeavor sighed, scratching his chin. Make it 5 years after his death. Strength quirks take time to master, even for an experienced hero. Especially for an experienced hero. A civilian who doesn't use their quirk may not notice right away. So try 5 years for your investigation too, Genist. Edgeshot looked at the information in the booklet before him. What if it was a child? He asked. The collective hero's eyes widened. All Might's sheer strength could be dangerous for them. Their quirk boost could make their power uncontrollable for their small, inexperienced bodies. 7 years have passed. The wielder will be at least 14 years old. If that is the case, he continued, they could be a hero student. Or a hero course applicant, Endeavor murmured. Look for any students with strength-enhancing or seemingly dual quirks that have strength as a side. He finished. The heroes nodded, leaving to start their investigations. Their time would be wasted, however, as Izuku did not want to be found. What do you think, Ninth? A woman's voice said. Izuku turned around, peering through the strange green fog at a group of figures. All Might? He asked. The huge shadow stared blankly. Izuku looked over at the woman standing beside All Might's shade. Tashinori isn't fully here. We don't know why, but his vestige never fully entered the quirk once he passed away. He was the only quirkless user, but we aren't sure if that's the reason, she explained. So you're one of the past users? He asked. She nodded, a similarly bright smile to All Might's once reassuring grin gracing her features. I am the 7th, Nana Shimura. All Might, or Tashinori Yagi, is the 8th. You, Izuku Midoriya, are the 9th. Izuku bowed politely. It is an honor to meet you. A sickly-looking man with shaggy white hair stepped forward to stand beside All Might's shade and Nana. We have appeared in your dreams because of a troubling event. My brother, All for One, still lives, he said. Izuku started in shock. Brother? So did that mean this man was the first wielder? The man smiled. Yes, I am the first. We have come to warn you that my brother can be tricky, manipulative. Even now, heroes and villains alike are searching for a person with two quirks, one of which they believe is a strength enhancer. This gives us an advantage. Unfortunately, we have long crossed the singularity. Be careful, as even I don't know what's going on within One for All. All I can say for sure is that you'll be the most powerful of all of us. Izuku snapped awake, floating a meter above his mattress. He wasted no time having breakfast, going to school, and racing through his work. Bakugo probably noticed something was off with his main target, but Izuku raced home and changed into his workout clothes the moment the bell rang. The greenette hopped over the weeds in his way, reaching the clearing that was his main training area. Izuku stood in the center, with his eyes closed. He took a deep breath and pulled on the new feeling that rested just beside One for All in his mind. He felt his feet leave the ground, and Izuku looked down to find he was several meters in the air. The greenette concentrated and floated a little to the left. He thought again and floated to the right. From that day forward, every day for 4 months, Izuku trained float. Nana appeared in his dreamscape again and told him about her original quirk. She gave him tips on flight, turning, and landing. Izuku was excited to find out what quirk he would discover next. It was in class when a spike of instinct warned Izuku. It felt like a warning. Izuku tilted his head to the left, letting an explosion barely clip his ear, singeing his hair. A growl came from behind him. Bakugo was standing there, a fierce expression on his face. Why are you dodging? You think you're better than me? Are you looking down on me, Deku? He asked. Izuku sighed to himself. Spidey sense from that old comic. That's going to be fun with Bakugo around. Don't ignore me, the blonde screeched, letting loose another blast, which was easily dodged by Izuku. Maybe this quirk won't be so bad. Izuku walked home, not even acknowledging the explosions behind him, dodging every quirk-enhanced blast, burn, and punch. Izuku met the fourth user in his dreamscape. The quirk's real name was Danger Sense. It didn't really need any training. It was a passive quirk that would alert him to any and all dangers around him. The feeling would get stronger if the danger was much bigger. Izuku could turn it off if he wanted whenever the constant warnings got tiresome. Izuku changed when he finished his homework and headed to the forest. He used float to traverse the thick foliage and reach the clearing, where he did some basic muscle training to increase his use of One for All. The first user had theorized that Izuku could use around 50% of One for All, which was much more than Izuku had been using to train. Through his dreams, Izuku learned about the history of All for One and One for All. He got tips on how to control his new powers and was taught fighting techniques by the first. Most martial arts had died out after the advent of quirks. Izuku learned styles and techniques that hadn't been used for several hundred years. It was 10 months until the entrance exam when Izuku was within the dreamscape for the last time. You have trained well, Ninth. We are all proud to have you as our successor. You are the accumulation of the strength of every person here, and I have no doubt you will be an incredible hero. I'm afraid this is farewell for now. We will try to enter your dreams to guide you, should you need it, but you won't be needing us too soon. Good luck on your exams, we will be watching, the first said. Izuku's predecessors faded away one by one, each waving and grinning at him, calling out words of encouragement. All Might's shade was the last to go, half waving goodbye. Izuku smiled at his predecessor, waving happily. Good luck, hero, 7 voices said as one. There was one voice that Izuku wanted to hear the most. But it wasn't there. Izuku stared up at Yue's gates in awe. Danger Sense warned him to step to the left, dodging Bakugo's shoulder check. Stupid Deku, he said, storming off. He was rude, a girl said. Izuku turned, coming face to face with a pretty brunette with rosy cheeks. Hi. Izuku said. The girl smiled. Hello. Being here is so cool, isn't it? I can't wait for the exam. Anyway, I don't want to be late. See you inside. The girl walked away, and Izuku could hear laughter from the fifth. Izuku entered the auditorium and took his seat next to the Pomeranian. He was just in time to see President Mike walk on stage. Welcome to Yue's Heroics Practical Exam. Can I get a yeah? Izuku grinned and sat up a little straighter. Oh, what the heck? Yeah, he yelled, while everyone else remained silent. Present Mike shot some finger guns at Izuku, a huge grin on his face. That's what I like to hear. Now, on to the explanation. You will all be split up into groups and placed into a city constructed for the exam. You must defeat robots to earn points to pass. There are 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. Earn as many points as you can in 10 minutes to. Excuse me, I have a question. A boy interrupted. Present Mike took the interruption in stride, pointing up at the boy. You're on air, examinee 7771. You mentioned there are 3 kinds of robots in the exam, but there are clearly 4 on the sheet and the screen behind you. If this is an error, then UA should be ashamed. Present Mike's smile was a little strained, but he hid his irritation well. Thank you, listener, but there's nothing to worry about. That robot is different. It doesn't give any points. Destroying it won't earn you any villain points whatsoever. It's more of an obstacle for you kids to avoid. It's not that it can't be beaten, it's just not worth the trouble. The boy sat back down after apologizing, and Present Mike finished the explanation with the school motto. So do your best out there, everyone. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Izuku thought about the explanation on the bus ride over. The 0-pointer had to have some kind of secret. Didn't give any villain points. Villain points? Izuku smiled. There was a secret scoring system. And what else did heroes do? Save people. Saving points? Helping points? Whatever they were called, that's what the 0-pointer was for. If you took it down and saved the people in its path, you would earn helping points. Interesting. Did that apply to any situation? Could you earn points by saving examinees from 1-pointers? From rubble? By doing first aid? Izuku frowned. The 0-pointer had to be significantly tougher than the other robots then. More weapons? Tougher armor? Izuku sighed, going through a list of his quirks and how he could use them in this situation. 1 for all, energy accumulation, gave him super strength and speed. Float was for reconnaissance and mobility. Black Whip was for reconnaissance and restraints. Danger Sense was self-explanatory. Wall Step was for climbing buildings. Smokescreen and Pour weren't all that useful in combat against robots. Smokescreen worked against human opponents, but a robot's sensors wouldn't be impaired much. Pour kept his skin fresh and clean, so it was obviously not a combat-oriented quirk. The bus slowed to a stop, and Izuku followed the rest of the teenagers outside, waiting beside a massive pair of doors. Izuku called on his quirks, keeping them shimmering just beneath the surface. Start! Present Mike screamed. Izuku kicked off the ground and flew through the still-opening doors at high speed. He launched Black Whip forward, grabbing a robot and swinging it around, using the 1-pointer as a club to beat a group of 2-pointers. Izuku had changed his quirk registry to energy manipulation 10 months ago. He included a few misleading tidbits in its description, claiming he had been accumulating energy unknowingly since he was 4 and activated it in his sleep by mistake, floating in the air. Over the course of a few months, he had slowly updated the registry to make it seem like he discovered new ways to use his energy. Izuku had Float, Black Whip, Danger Sense, Smokescreen, and Wall Step added to the registry alongside Super Speed. He was perfectly hidden from both the heroes and villains searching for him. Everyone was so focused on super strength that they didn't realize it could be hidden as super speed. Quite a few people with strength enhancers had come forward claiming, "I am the successor to All Might." But they were, of course, found to be bogus. Izuku smashed his 20th 3-pointer, cleaving his foot through its neck. 118 points. Most of the basic robots have already been taken down, and I don't know how many helping points I've earned. That just leaves the 0-pointer. Izuku muttered under his breath. Danger Sense spiked through his mind. It was the biggest threat Izuku had felt so far with the quirk, but the feeling still wasn't as strong as the 4th said it would get when facing villains. Okay, there is danger, but it's not all that severe, he mumbled, sprinting toward the source of the screaming 2 streets away. Izuku skidded to a stop and stared up at the 0-pointer. It's more of an obstacle you should try to avoid. Thanks, Present Mike, I'll totally avoid that thing. Avoid it where exactly? Izuku asked nobody in particular. Danger sense spiked again, making Izuku look around. He spotted the brunette from earlier trapped under a pile of rubble. Danger sense could tell him if someone else was in danger? That was pretty useful. Izuku flew to the girl, snaking Black Whip under the rubble and lifting it all at once. "Are you hurt?" he asked. The girl shook her head, standing up on unsteady legs. Izuku smiled, tossing the concrete at the robot. "Get going then. I'll hold this guy off. Try and help anyone else that's stuck too." Izuku pushed off and flew upward, toward the zero-pointer's head. The UA faculty were watching the screens with interest. "Nizu, what's the kid's quirk registered as?" a scruffy man asked. A bipedal animal in a suit looked down at his tablet. He was quirkless until 10 months ago, when he updated his registry to energy manipulation. He updated it 3 more times at irregular intervals to add new aspects he discovered. He has super speed and super strength, he can fly, create those dark tendrils, sense danger, and walk on walls. Most of the heroes present sighed in disappointment. "So it's not him?" the same man asked. Nizu shook his head. "It's not impossible, however, it is most likely just an energy manipulation quirk. The reason it was only discovered 10 months ago checks out alongside other late bloomers and undiscovered accumulation-type quirks. It is unlikely the boy possesses one for all. Keep an eye on him though, just in case." Izuku blew the head off of the zero-pointer with ease. "He is most definitely in your class, Aizawa." Izuku was stopped outside his house by Bakugo. "What do you want?" Izuku asked. Bakugo scowled. "How did you get a quirk?" "Are you the one that All for One has been looking for?" he asked. Izuku snorted. "What? You think I have All Might's quirk? That's ridiculous. Who would give such a powerful quirk to a 5-year-old? Bakugo hesitated for a moment, considering his words. "How did you get a quirk then, Deku?" he yelled. Izuku sighed. "I've had a quirk all along, but it was just dormant. I can manipulate energy to do different things, like enhance my speed and strength, fly, sense danger around me, and other little tricks. It spent the last 10 years accumulating energy, storing it within my body. I'm only able to use the energy because it reached a certain threshold." Bakugo looked mildly confused but couldn't argue with Izuku about his own quirk. "Fine. You'd better have made it into UA. I want to prove that explosion is superior to everything else." The blonde stormed off. Izuku shook his head in exasperation as he walked through his front door and greeted his mother. "How did the exam go, Izuku? How was using your quirk? Did you have any trouble? Are you hurt? Are you experiencing any drawbacks?" Inko asked, her voice filled with concern. Izuku smiled, trying to put his mother at ease. "Don't worry, I'm completely okay. The only drawback I've experienced so far is exhaustion from running around for a long time." He had told the same cover story to the quirk counselor, his mother, and on UA's quirk registry for his application. Izuku had only gone to the quirk counselor and registered it for the first time when he gained access to about 75% of his total strength, just in case All for One found out somehow. Only ever used 15% when fighting. 20% could break bones, and 30% could cause serious internal damage with barely a tap. A direct hit with 40% to a normal person's torso could be fatal. Izuku calculated that the hero, Blockade, could maybe survive a glancing blow from 70%, but only if he was in his armored hero suit and had momentum taking him away from the impact. Blockade had the strongest registered resistance quirk in history. Izuku would only ever go above 50% to deal with All for One and his minions. Other than that, 50% and higher was used for speed. When he used Float, Izuku's maximum speed was around 60 miles an hour once he really got going. Using One for All at 25% could match that. Black Whip was a tough quirk to master, but Izuku could control the pitch-black tendrils at will. They were resistant to most attacks and could only interact with things Izuku willed them to. He could reach out about 40 meters around him before losing precise control over them. The amount the whips could lift was directly proportional to his strength. If Izuku activated One for All, the whips became stronger too. Danger sense could be taught, what the user considered dangerous or not. For example, a speeding truck approaching a child in the road. It wasn't a danger to Izuku, but it could be if he ran out there to help the child. That ability allowed Izuku to sense any danger another person near him might be in. Wall step let Izuku walk on walls and ceilings without blood rushing to his head. If he dropped something while upside down, the object would fall to the ceiling until its momentum ran out, then rise back into his hand. Smokescreen released a cloud of dark smoke around Izuku, blocking enemies' view of him while he had enhanced sight through the smoke. It allowed him to fight opponents while they were unable to see. Izuku lay on his back, staring up at the ceiling. The heroes have released another request for information on your successor, All Might. I'm doing my best, but they're the top 10 heroes. I can't hide from them for much longer. And if I can't hide from them, then I can't hide from him. As usual, Izuku didn't receive an answer from his predecessor other than a calming warmth in his chest. Thank you, Master. I promise I'll make you proud, he whispered. Izuku felt the warmth encompass him as he drifted off to sleep. Izuku tore the letter open at his desk. It had come in the mail, and the moment it slipped through the door, he had grabbed it and bolted to his room. A small metal disc clattered onto the desk. Izuku gaped at the projection that hovered over it. But he didn't? Wait. Hold on, what? Hello, Izuku Midoriya. I am the pro-hero Endeavor, and I will be the heroics teacher at UA this year. I see you have passed the written portion of the exam quite well, with impressive scores. Congratulations. Endeavor smirked at the screen. Now, onto your incredible display at the practical exam. I must say, even I was impressed by the speed, strength, and fine control you displayed. Power and expertise like that haven't been seen since the big guy himself. You got a score of 118 villain points, surpassing everybody else. Well done. All Might himself only got 120 villain points, which shows just how impressive that score is. However, there was a hidden aspect to the exam. Heroes are supposed to rescue people after all, so a panel of judges awarded rescue points for heroic acts. Izuku grinned to himself, pleased that he had been correct about the hidden system. You earned a total of 95 rescue points because of your various deeds helping others throughout the exam. I look forward to teaching you in Class 1A of the Hero course, Midoriya. Endeavor flared up and the hologram cut out. That was a lot to process. Endeavor had mellowed out some since All Might's death, taking on the burden of being number one. He had confessed to the authorities about his various misdeeds towards his family and had been let off with a warning. The Todoroki family now lived in relative peace together, with the eldest brother never fully forgiving the hero but begrudgingly accepting that he was truly regretful. The youngest is my age. Maybe Endeavor wants to help train him, or? Izuku sat up straight, staring at the disc. He's searching for one for all. Izuku walked along the hallway, peering at the signs above the doors. He was searching the massive school for Class 1A but hadn't been successful thus far. He approached the next door, looking up at the sign high on the wall. Classroom 1A. Izuku grinned, reaching for the handle and pushing the door open. Take your feet off the desk this instant. It is extremely disrespectful to both the school and the people who made the desk. The boy who interrupted Present Mic complained. The perpetrator of this act of mischief was, of course, Bakugo. What school are you from, you side character? Is that where you got that stick up your back? He asked. The boy sighed, placing a hand on his chest. I am Tenya Ida of Semi-Private Academy. I implore you to take your feet off the desk. Semi? So you're some kind of elite? I'll have fun taking you down. Ida recoiled in shock. Taking me down? Are you sure you want to be a hero? Izuku sighed in exasperation, gaining their attention. If you two are going to argue, can you maybe keep it down? He asked. Ida nodded vigorously, clamping his jaw shut, physically restraining himself from apologizing. Bakugo scoffed but looked away, taking his feet off the desk once Ida got off his case. Izuku sat down behind the blonde just as a yellow caterpillar slunk into the room, seemingly surprised. You're already quiet. I'm impressed. My name is Shota Aizawa. I'm your homeroom teacher. Put your P uniforms on and head outside, to the back of the school. You have 5 minutes, don't be late or you'll be expelled. A sense of unease tingled in the back of Izuku's mind. This guy wasn't joking around. Izuku changed quickly and arrived outside 3 minutes after Aizawa's warning. The sense of unease had been getting stronger, warning him of the impending expulsion. 3 minutes. Seems you're the rational one, Aizawa commented. Izuku laughed. Not at all, sir. I was just fast because my instincts wouldn't stop nagging me about the expulsion threat. Aizawa seemed intrigued by his last statement but remained silent. The rest of the class quickly walked onto the field. Ida was the last out, making the 5-minute mark by mere seconds. All here on time. Now, we'll be doing a quirk assessment test this morning. You will be redoing your general fitness tests, but you can use your quirks this time. Midoriya, you scored highest on the entrance exams. What was your furthest ball throw in middle school? Aizawa asked. Izuku thought for a moment. Around 70 meters or so, sir. Aizawa nodded. All right, step into the circle and throw the ball. Anything goes, just don't leave the circle. Izuku took the ball from Aizawa and stepped into the small circle on the grass. He charged one for all throughout his body and summoned Black Whip, curling the end around the ball. He spun the tendril around in an arc, gaining momentum until he released it, sending the ball soaring into the distance. He only used 20%, concealing his true strength. Aizawa turned the scoring tablet to the class, revealing the distance thrown. As you can see, you'll be getting some impressive results. 4,552 meters? That's insane, a red-haired boy exclaimed. We get to use our quirks as much as we want? Awesome, the boy with unusual elbows said. This looks like fun, the pink girl added. That last comment seemed to irritate Aizawa the most. Izuku's instincts flared up, indicating another expulsion threat was looming. Fun? You think hero work is all fun and games? Alright then, if you want to have fun. Whoever comes in last place overall will be expelled from the hero course, effective immediately. There were several cries of protest from most of the class. Shoto Todoroki seemed indifferent, but he appeared indifferent about most things. The other recommendation student, Momo Yaoyorozu, looked skeptical of Aizawa's threat. Izuku knew they couldn't change his decision. Izuku navigated through the tests with little difficulty, sticking to 20% the whole way through to keep his quirk's true nature hidden. Unfortunately, Aizawa noticed he was holding back. Midoriya, come take the ball throw again. We hadn't properly started the tests, so the machines didn't record your score. Make sure you go all out. His instincts kicked in again, but Izuku ignored the warning in his mind. He picked up the ball and summoned Black Whip once more, curling it around the ball in his hand. He pulled his arm back and, all of a sudden, All Might's comforting presence and the reassuring auras of the previous users vanished. Izuku dropped the ball, panic rising within him. When had he released Black Whip? What happened to the past users? Where was One for All? He began to panic, taking quick gasps of air. It had been entrusted to him the sacred duty, the most powerful quirk in existence. Why couldn't he call on it? Where were they? The predecessors returned, their presence stronger than before. He could feel phantom hands touching his shoulders, his arms, his head. Izuku spun around, coming face to face with a concerned, guilty-looking Aizawa. Midoriya, are you okay? I apologize, I didn't think through using erasure on an accumulation quirk. Are you hurt? He asked. Izuku shook his head, calming his racing heart. I'm okay, sir. It was just a shock. Why did you erase my quirk? He asked. Aizawa regained his grumpy exterior, but Izuku had already seen through it. You're limiting yourself. I saw what you did to the zero-pointer. It was almost twice as powerful as what you've been doing today. I want you to go all out. Izuku cursed himself internally for using 30% at the exam but nodded at his teacher. Sorry, sir. Using that much energy and having it flood through my muscles strains them. I get really tired really quickly, he lied, hoping his teacher would believe him. Aizawa did, but as this was the last test, Izuku was expected to go all out. Izuku stepped back into the circle and called on One for All and Black Whip. One for All, full cowling. 30%. Izuku launched the ball into the distance, barely breaking a sweat. Aizawa glanced down at his tablet. 8,422 meters. You almost doubled your score. I'm impressed, Aizawa grinned. Izuku was sitting in class, waiting for their heroics teacher to arrive. Loud footsteps echoed outside the door, and Endeavor strode inside. Alright, you pipsqueaks. Get your gear on and get to Gym Gamma. We're having battle training, the fiery hero declared, hands on his hips. Izuku grabbed his costume case and quickly left through the door. He could feel Endeavor's eyes watching him, his instincts thrumming quietly in the background. Izuku himself didn't know if Endeavor was a threat or not, so neither did his instincts. Izuku changed into his green jumpsuit quickly, pulling the green cowl over his head and fixing the metal mouthguard into place. The ears were meant to resemble All Might's hair, a homage to his late predecessor, but they ended up making him look like a big green bunny in combat gear with big red boots that had metal soles. Izuku was the first outside, joining Endeavor in an observation room. The hero was studying him carefully. Thankfully, the rest of the class arrived quickly after him, and Endeavor started the lesson. Alright, you maggots. You may think you're impressive with your flashy abilities, but I've got news for you. You'll need real combat experience if you're going to succeed as a hero. That's why we're here. You'll be divided into teams, Hero Squad and Villain Squad. If I believe you have what it takes to be a hero, you'll join the hero team. If you seem like a troublemaker, you'll be on the villain's side. I won't entertain any objections. Bunny Boy, Hero Team. Endeavor declared. Why yes sir. Izuku responded, standing to the side. Endeavor sorted them into teams. There were 4 hero teams and 4 villain teams. Izuku's team consisted of himself, Hagakure, Jairu, Uraraka, and Kirishima. Midoriya team, you'll be facing Bakugo's team. You'll start at opposite ends of the city and then meet in the middle. You both have objectives. Escape at the opposite end with your files. Only one hero or villain needs to escape with the files for the whole team to win. Understand? Endeavor barked. Alright, I have a plan if you want to hear it, Izuku said. Kirishima, Uraraka, and Jairu nodded. Hagakure waved her hands. Here's my idea. Alright, get going. Endeavor commanded through the speakers. Izuku and Hagakure dashed down a side street, heading for the villain's starting gate. Hagakure held a black envelope in her gloves. Bakugo and Ida approached Izuku. Greetings, heroes. I see your plan was to distract us with your teammates while Hagakure delivers the documents unseen. Ida stated. Izuku sighed. Exactly right, Ida. However, once I deal with you, there's nothing you can do to stop our plan. Enough talk, let's fight. Bakugo shouted, launching himself toward Izuku. Come at me. Izuku replied with a grin. One for all, full cowling. 15%. Green lightning crackled around Izuku as he swiftly dodged Bakugo's explosion. He grabbed Bakugo's extended arm and swung him over his shoulder, slamming him to the ground. Caught off guard, Ida began his own assault on the file a moment later. Bakugo growled, staggering to his feet. I'll admit you've got some moves. But my explosions are still superior, he declared, charging again. Izuku created a thick smokescreen, stepping up onto the wall to his left, evading Bakugo's attack once more. Fight me head-on, Deku. Bakugo yelled. Izuku glanced at Ida, who had managed to grab the file from Hagakure. What? This is. Bakugo, we have to retreat to the gate now. Bakugo turned to Ida, noticing the discarded gloves and shoes, along with the black rectangle in Ida's hands. Black Whip. Make the threads thin enough and I can control them. Make them thick enough and I can shape them. Izuku said, floating down toward Bakugo and Ida. Ida panicked, turning toward the gate. Bakugo turned on Izuku, snarling. Izuku grinned, thickening the threads and ensnaring his opponents, immobilizing them. Where's Hagakure? Bakugo demanded. The hero team has won the exercise. Everyone stop fighting and return to the observation room. Move it. Endeavor announced through the speakers. Izuku released his opponents and led them back to the observation room. Hagakure, Uraraka, Jairu, Kirishima, Mina, Siro, and Kaminari were already there. Hagakure took her costume back from Izuku. Now that everyone is back, who can tell me which of these individuals is the MVP? Endeavor asked. Yaoyorozu raised her hand. I believe that would be Midoriya. He devised the plan and utilized his abilities effectively to execute it. He distracted 2 of the 5 opponents simultaneously by controlling Hagekyure's costume and creating a fake document for it to hold. He managed to hold his own until Hagekyure could sneak past the other enemies, who were engaged by her teammates, and get the file to the gate, she explained. Endeavor nodded curtly. Good. Now, the next teams to go will be. Izuku was asked to stay behind by Endeavor. His classmates gave him sympathetic glances as they left. Midoriya. Out of everyone we've suspected, you are the most likely candidate to wield One for All. I won't pursue you for it. I just want to know if there's anyone who can stand up to All for One. Izuku feigned shock. You think I have All Might's quirk? Is that what it's called, One for All? It's the opposite of All for One, so it's quite fitting, he mumbled. He shook off the surprise and looked up at Endeavor. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't have One for All. The circumstances of my quirk's manifestation are unusual, but I don't possess All Might's power, Izuku lied. Endeavor stared down at him for a moment before sighing. Alright boy. I can't say I believe you, but I'll let it go. Once Izuku left, the flaming hero pulled out his phone and sent a text. Endeavor, he said he didn't have it. Gran Torino, I'd recognize Float and Nana's master's black whip anywhere. Nizu, perhaps he is afraid that we want One for All? Night Eye, maybe he just took inspiration from some past hero's quirks to manifest his energy? The super strength he wields is nowhere near All Might's strength. Recovery Girl, the boy hasn't come to me with any broken bones. David Shield, the energy output is restrained. He has a tremendous energy reserve inside him, but only a fraction was used in today's lesson. He's holding back to avoid causing harm, just like Toshi did. Nizu, so he's gained decent control over One for All. We will continue training him, and once he is ready, Izuku Midoriya can face All for One and put a stop to this madness. Eraserhead, All for One's monthly demand is tomorrow. Want me to do the usual? Gran Torino, yes, and stress how foolish it would be to confront him now. The boy likely only has 50% of his abilities under control. He'll need 100 to defeat that monster. David Shield, I've compared the energy readings of Midoriya in today's battle training and Toshinori in his prime, just before he faced All for One 9 years ago. Midoriya's energy reserves are significantly greater. I'd estimate around 15% more than Toshi. Izuku watched Aizawa roll into homeroom. Good you're all here. For anyone who has forgotten, today is All for One's monthly demand for the user of One for All to come forward, Aizawa said, clicking a remote, the screen lighting up behind him. We're going to watch today's demand and will continue to do so for the rest of the school year, until they stop or you graduate. If any of you do have One for All, do not, under any circumstances, go to All for One. You are probably the only one who can stop him, wherever he may be. Aizawa's frown lingered on Izuku for a moment longer than it did on his classmates. He turned on the news and sure enough, All for One was there. Izuku scowled, clenching his fists beneath the table. Good morning, citizens of Japan. Once again, I have come before you to ask that the wielder of One for All come forward. It has been almost 9 years since All Might's tragic passing, he said with a hint of sarcasm. One for All sparked at Izuku's fingertips. I'm sure you have had ample time to train. Why not come and face me? Save me the trouble of drawing you out. I have grown quite bored with this little game, so I have decided to end it. The place you were given One for All, meet me there, or what I do next will be on your head. The broadcast cut off abruptly. He's getting anxious. I've got about 120% of All Might's strength. I've been expanding my limits, increasing the power I can wield. The past user's quirks are also another trump card. He won't be expecting me to have them, so I can catch him by surprise. Aizawa turned off the screen. Now, you're going on a field trip tomorrow, so you'll need to pick a class president, he said. Izuku ended up being chosen for class representative, but he gave the position to Ida for his excellent actions during the media's break-in. Aizawa instructed them to put on their costumes and head out to the buses. Class 1A was now driving to a special facility for rescue training. Izuku sat between Azui and Uraraka. Midoriya, Azui said. Izuku turned to the frog girl expectantly. I'm normally blunt and say whatever's on my mind. Your quirk is strange. It's almost like you have multiple quirks, but that's impossible unless you have one for all, she remarked. Izuku chuckled to himself. I've been told the same thing before, quite a few times now. My quirk is just a strong energy manipulation and accumulation. I use the energy to achieve different things, making it seem like I have multiple quirks, Izuku explained. Aizawa had one eye cracked open, watching him. All right, you brats, we're here, Aizawa announced. The students got off the bus and met Endeavor and the rescue hero 13 at the domed building. It's 13. They're my favorite hero. Uraraka exclaimed excitedly. The students followed the heroes inside and were given an inspirational speech by 13. That is why you will be learning to use your quirks to save others. Now look down. The hero was cut off by the lights flickering, and a large purple mass swirling into existence in the courtyard below. People stepped out of the mass. Whoa, you even have fake villains? Kirishima asked, stepping forward. Get back, those are real villains. Aizawa warned, pulling on his goggles. 13 Endeavor, protect the students. I'll hold them off. Eraserhead stepped to the edge of the staircase. The heroes nodded, turning back to the students as Eraserhead leapt into the fray. Get back to the entrance. Hurry! 13 urged. Get moving, everyone. Endeavor shouted. Izuku followed his classmates toward the door, but their way was blocked by another swirling purple portal. Greetings. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we have let ourselves in to send a message to the wielder of One for All. Our master grows weary of waiting, so we shall draw him out by targeting a group of Hero Corps students, as well as the current number 1 hero, a misty figure declared, forming from the fog around him. Endeavor launched flames at the portal villain, but it was redirected toward 13. Bakugo and Kirishima jumped at the villain, but were whisked away by a portal to who knows where. I'd almost forgotten, you are UA students for a reason. My job is to scatter you all and make this as difficult as possible for you. Purple fog surged forward, and Izuku found himself dropped onto a steep mountainside. He activated Float, drifting carefully to the ground. Yaoyorozu and Jairu were deposited nearby, crashing to the ground. Are you both all right? Izuku asked. The girls nodded, getting to their feet. I'm fine, but we won't be in a minute if they've got anything to say about it, Jairu said, pointing behind him. Izuku looked back inside. A horde of about 30 villains was charging toward them. We're still in the USJ, so we should assume the others are in different zones too. Lives are at risk, so I can't afford to hold back anymore, Izuku muttered. Hold back, Jairu asked. One for all, full cowling. 120%. The ground shattered beneath Izuku's feet, and his gloves were torn to shreds. Green energy discharged around him, making the air hum with power. There was a crack, and Izuku was gone. A second crack, less than a second later, and he reappeared in the same spot, with the villains all crumpled to their knees, unconscious. 100% was All Might's full strength in his prime. Since then, Izuku had pushed One for All past its limits. His own 100% was 1/5 stronger than All Might's. Where All Might blurred toward his enemies, Izuku vanished from one spot and reappeared in another. Izuku let his hold on One for All go, and the energy vanished, the ground no longer turning to dust at his feet. Go back to the main entrance, Izuku instructed. His classmates nodded, and Izuku disappeared in a flash of green lightning and a sonic boom. Izuku rocketed to the landslide zone. Todoroki had things covered here. He reached the earthquake zone in an instant, watching Bakugo and Kirishima take down a pair of villains. They had things under control. Izuku went to the Inferno zone and knocked out every villain around Ojiro at once. The tailed hero student looked around in confusion as Izuku arrived at the downpour zone. Tokoyami and Koda had things handled here, but better safe than sorry. The villains all collapsed here too, to the students' confusion. Izuku reached the flood zone, leaping across the water, grabbing his classmates Azui and Mineta, and leaping from the sinking ship back to the shore, flicking his fingers as he passed over the villains. Azui and Mineta blinked, looking around. Izuku reached the central plaza just as the villain leader reached for Aizawa. He dashed forward, slamming his fist into the villain's stomach at 15%, grabbing Eraserhead and dragging him away. The grotesque hand fell from the villain's face, and Izuku put the hero down at the top of the staircase. 13 was unconscious, and Endeavor was injured. Several students were near the door, trying to help the heroes. Endeavor grinned when he saw Izuku and Aizawa materialize from nowhere. Izuku sighed internally but smiled brightly at his frightened classmates. "It's all right now. Because I am here," he said, mimicking his mentor. Realization dawned on Aizawa's face, and Endeavor wore the biggest grin Izuku had ever seen. "I knew it. Go and get them, Brett. Put your hood up though," Endeavor instructed. Izuku nodded, pulling his cowl up and securing the metal mouthguard in place. "The other students should be arriving here any minute. You should all get outside for now." With that, Izuku was gone, leaving only the cracked ground where he had stood. He stopped in the courtyard, facing the villains. "Give up now, villains, and I won't be forced to resort to any more violence." The lead villain scoffed, his hands still covering his face. "You're strong. Too strong. Are you the 9th user of One for All?" he asked. Izuku chuckled. "Nope. My quirk is just really strong. Now, are you going to come quietly?" The villain giggled to himself. "Nomo. Take him down," he commanded. Izuku watched as the muscular, dark creature charged toward him. It was surprisingly slow. Izuku punched it in the gut with 50% of his strength, but it barely flinched. Raising his eyebrow, he charged up to 120% and punched it back several meters. 2 sonic booms echoed through the air, and the hand villain began to throw a fit. "We created Nomu to defeat All Might." "How?" he shouted, scratching at his neck in frustration. Izuku grinned. "He might have been created to defeat All Might, but he wasn't made to take me down." In a flash, Izuku vanished, and the Nomu was sent flying back after 3 sonic booms. 10 hits! Izuku shouted. 10 hits to win this fight. The heroes and villains watched in awe and fear as the anti-All Might creature soared into the air with a 4th sonic boom, followed by another 5 hits until it crashed back down to the ground, where Izuku materialized before it. Smash! With one final loud impact, the Nomu was launched away, out of the USJ and into the distance. "Just like I said, 10 hits," Izuku grinned. "Kurogiri, get us out of here," the hand villain screeched. "At once, Shigaraki," the mist man replied. Izuku charged forward, but he was too far away to reach them before they stepped through the portal. Cursing under his breath, he blurred back to the entrance. The leaders escaped. Most of the small-time thugs they brought are unconscious, and the anti-All Might creature is somewhere outside. "It shouldn't be a threat without orders from Shigaraki, though," he reported to Aizawa and Endeavor. The flaming hero nodded with a grunt. "Unfortunate, but not bad for your first real fight. Most of the students got back while you dealt with the monster. The only ones unaccounted for are Bakugo, Kirishima, and Shoto," he said. Aizawa finished bandaging his decayed arm and looked at Izuku. "So, you are the 9th wielder of One for All," he said, his tone accusatory. Izuku nodded. "I am. I found All Might in an abandoned building, and he gave me One for All. He warned me to trust no one, no villain or hero. He said people would hunt me for power if they knew, even the good guys," Izuku explained. Aizawa sighed. "Well, nobody on the case wants One for All for themselves." All Might's detective friend confirmed that with his lie detector quirk. Izuku pulled his hood off, looking back down at the UAV. Bakugo, Kirishima, and Todoroki were coming up the stairs now, gazing around at the unconscious villains in awe. Endeavor looked up from his phone. "Signal's back. Nizu knows about the situation," he said. Endeavor reported that all was good news. The only injuries were minor bruises and slight blood loss from Aizawa. Midoriya revealed One for All to save his classmates in Aizawa. He confirmed to them just now that he is the 9th, by word of mouth. Nizu responded, "Excellent. I am glad the students are safe." Recovery girl will be on site in 2 minutes. Knight asked, "What happened?" Gran Torino exclaimed, "He really is the ninth." Dimindi. Nizu explained to Night Eye. In answer to your question, it seems there was a villain attack on the USJ. The villains work for All for One, trying to provoke the ninth through the media most likely. Night Eye added, and Midoriya used One for All's full power to save his classmates. We must begin preparing him at once if All for One is making bold moves such as this. Nizu agreed. Indeed. Now, if you will excuse us, we have some traumatized students to take care of. Izuku was escorted to a meeting room, still in full costume. He opened the door and was met with dead silence as the UA staff, a police detective, Sir Night Eye, and a short, yellow-costumed man stared at him. "Come in, Mr. Midoriya. Please, take a seat," Nizu said. Izuku sat down on Nizu's left, while Aizawa took the seat to Nizu's right. Now, as everyone here is aware, you are the ninth wielder of One for All, correct? The rat asked. Izuku nodded. That is correct. How much control do you have over One for All? The short yellow hero inquired. I had 75% when I registered it, and recently got it to 100%. I've been training hard with One for All and can use about 120% of All Might's full strength from his prime, he replied. How much have you used for training exercises? Aizawa asked. 30% for speed, 15% at most for hitting opponents. 15% can break bones, 30% can rupture organs. 40% is fatal to a normal person, Izuku explained. Would you mind returning to school tomorrow to conduct some tests? Nizu asked. Izuku nodded. Sure, I can come in tomorrow. Aizawa sighed. All right, go back to homeroom. I'll be there shortly to talk to the class, he said. Izuku stood from his seat, bowing politely to the heroes as he left. Izuku was confronted by Yaoyorozu and Jai once Aizawa dismissed the class. The hero raised an eyebrow as he left the classroom but exited after everybody else. Midoriya. Yaoyorozu began. Do you have All Might's quirk? Jairu blurted out. The two stared at her. What? I just didn't want to beat around the bush like Momo was going to. She turned her attention back to Izuku, her eyebrows raised. The greenette sighed at their expectant expressions. Yes. But you cannot tell anyone. Understand? He said. Both girls nodded quickly. How do you create those black whips? Are they your original quirk or a part of One for All? Yaoyorozu asked excitedly. Izuku sighed internally. This was probably going to take a while. Izuku tugged on his PE kit, leaving the changing room and walking up to Gym Gamma. Aizawa, Nizu, Sir Night Eye, Endeavor, and the old yellow hero were waiting for him there. Midoriya, you're right on time. We're going to be doing a few tests and exercises to find the limits of One for All that you've reached. Is that all right with you? Nizu asked. Izuku simply nodded, accepting the ball from Aizawa. The greenette stepped into the circle and threw the ball with all his might. They calculated and recorded a wide variety of scores and results. Flight speed, black whip grip strength, black whip reach, danger sense radius, smokescreen light dilution, One for All running speed, grip strength, and jump height. Aizawa removed his capture weapon, placing it on the ground next to Nizu. All right, Midoriya, last test. Quirkless hand-to-hand. I'd like you to spar with Aizawa here, just to see how you fare in quirkless combat. Izuku nodded, stepping a few paces away from the heroes. Aizawa did the same, setting his capture weapon aside. Begin. Nizu chirped from the side. Izuku darted forward, keeping his eyes locked on Aizawa's hands and feet. The teacher's stance shifted, his right foot slightly back while his right hand pulled back for a punch. Izuku deflected the feint and blocked Aizawa's sweeping leg. The greenette tugged the hero forward, who twisted his body in response and lashed out with his fists. The student leaned back, pulling Aizawa's leg with him. The hero stumbled, losing his balance. Izuku's right leg lashed out, sweeping Aizawa's left leg out from under him. Aizawa was pinned easily, and Izuku was declared the winner. Sir Night Eye stepped forward, his critical gaze scanning Izuku. He tossed a small object to the boy. Izuku caught it, examining it in the palm of his hand. It was some kind of stamp. Sir Night Eye said nothing, simply smiling in satisfaction. The shorter hero hobbled over with his walking stick. "All right, now let's see how you do against an opponent using their quirk," he said, grinning mischievously. The small man flew into the sky with a whoosh of air. Izuku barely registered danger sense and dodged just in time as the hero zoomed through the space where his head had been moments before. Izuku sat on the sofa with weights in his hands, curling his biceps back and forth. It took 300 reps for him to start feeling discomfort in his arms. He was determined to train one for all until he was twice as strong as All Might ever was. All for One wouldn't stand a chance. The students were given a week off due to the incident, so Izuku spent that time training. He sold his old weights and bought much heavier ones. He wore out a pair of trainers with his rigorous workouts and needed to buy new ones. He did push-ups, sit-ups, and squats, ran for hours at a time, and whenever he wasn't running he was lifting weights. He trained with his quirks throughout the day, using Black Whip to grab things, fine-tuning his control of smokescreen in his room, exercising on the ceiling, and using float hidden in the woods. Class 1A, minus Izuku, Bakugo, Yaoyorozu, and Jairu, held a meeting. They waited until the end of the day and met back in the classroom once everyone had left. Yaoyorozu and Jairu had declined the meeting, saying they already had plans. Bakugo hadn't even replied in the group chat, muttering about stupid idiots as he left the room. Izuku hadn't been notified. Shoji and Koda made sure Aizawa had left before the class sat down. The muscular boy gave Ida a nod before sitting at his desk. "Alright, thank you both." "Shoji, would you mind keeping an ear out for anyone outside the room?" the class president asked. The gentle giant nodded silently, extending one of his arms toward the door. Ida cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "Some of you may be wondering why I have called this meeting. It is about something that happened at the USJ. More than half of the class were warped all around the facility, so they did not witness what we are here for. Those of us who were left at the top of the stairs, myself, Uraraka, Sato, Shiro, Ashido, and Shoji, witnessed something we were not meant to see, I believe." "What happened? Everyone's okay, right?" Kirishima asked. Ida nodded. "Indeed. In fact, I think we are all better than just okay." Kirishima, the 9th user of All Might's quirk, revealed himself at the USJ. The class sat in silent shock for a few moments. "Who is it?" Kaminari asked quietly. Ida adjusted his glasses quickly. "We are not absolutely certain. However, we believe Midoriya is All Might's heir. He displayed speed and strength far greater than he's shown in training, faster even than All Might himself. I didn't even see him move. He just vanished from where he was standing, and a flurry of impacts sounded from the villains below. That pure brute force. It can only be one for all." Uraraka raised her hand, standing from her seat. "And when he came up the stairs, he said All Might's famous line. It was really cool and he smiled just like him too." Mina nodded, a smile stretching across her face. "It's all right now. But because I am here." Ida nodded along with their input. "Indeed. He obviously has great respect and admiration for All Might, so much so that if he weren't his successor, he wouldn't dare quote the man. Nobody has spoken those lines ever since All Might's death. That, coupled with the monstrous speed and strength, as well as Aizawa and Endeavor's reactions to Midoriya's actions, leads me to believe he is the one." The whole class looked convinced, starting to mutter among themselves. Ida interrupted with a light cough. "With that said, we should keep quiet about this. There is most likely a good reason they aren't telling anyone this, and Midoriya himself needs to focus on his training. If All for One were to catch wind that Midoriya is the most likely candidate to be All Might's successor." Even Mineta looked grim but determined. The world had lived in fear of All for One for years. They wouldn't be the ones to ruin its only chance. Class 1A left the classroom feeling more hopeful than when they entered. One of the students glanced around at her classmates, relieved they'd figured it out. She would have exploded trying to keep this secret. She quietly made her way up the stairs of the UJ. Todoroki had dealt with the villains in the landslide zone, so she just needed to get back to the teachers. She looked up, spotting Midoriya, Aizawa, and Endeavor standing just at the top of the long staircase. The invisible girl was able to make out their words. So, you are the 9th user of One for All, Izawa said, his tone serious. I am. Izuku stood among the first years, watching Midnight introduce the sports festival to the crowd. Would the student representative Izuku Midoriya please come to the stage to deliver a speech? She called out. Izuku stared at the hero in shock. Student representative? Speech? When was he supposed to have been told that little bombshell? Up in the announcer's booth, Izawa came to a realization. I didn't tell him, did I? Ah well, he'll be fine. Izuku stepped up beside Midnight, accepting the microphone from her. He hesitated for a moment before sighing, holding the microphone up to his face and speaking to the crowd. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Izawa, who notified me I was supposed to give a speech. Izuku turned to the announcer's booth. Thank you, sir. That got a chuckle from the crowd, while Mike gave the underground hero a disappointed stare. Now, there are two things I'd like to address. I know we have people wanting to enter the hero course through the festival. I wish you luck and hope you do your best. He smiled sincerely at the crowd of students standing before him, earning some surprised looks. Izuku's expression turned a little more serious. The entire world is living in fear. Of villains. Of disaster. Of him. Ever since the previous #1 hero's defeat, every citizen, every hero, and even every villain has been living in fear of one man. All for one. Hiding in the shadows, manipulating people like pieces on a chessboard, searching desperately for All Might's successor. Izuku paused for dramatic effect. The crowd remained silent. That's all the USJ was. A desperate attack in a futile effort to draw out the 9th. The villains themselves even told us as much. His underlings, or even All for One himself, are probably watching the festival right now in an effort to find All Might's successor. To all of the people angry at him, hurt by him, afraid of him. Izuku turned, staring directly into the camera. The world watched as once again, a bright, determined, reassuring smile shone on their screens. Have no fear. Because I am here. He leaned forward in his chair, the plastic tubes and hollow wires squeaking in protest. He growled in frustration at the same infuriating smile that had plagued him for 3 generations of that cursed quirk. The small television creaked as his fingers gripped the fragile sides, cracks beginning to spiderweb along the screen. It is him, All for One spat. The first event was an obstacle race. Izuku stood at the back of the first years, his eyes focused on the exit tunnel. It would be a struggle getting through there. Midnight called the start of the race, and the tunnel was immediately crammed with every first-year student trying to get through at once. Izawa had spoken to Izuku before the festival. He was limited to 50% for the entire event. My 50 or Master's 50? Izawa sighed. I'm going to regret this. You're 50. He regretted it. Izuku activated 25% and blurred forward, leaping over the other students' heads and using wall step to make his way through the tunnel. It looked like he was running so fast he could run on walls, but that wasn't the case. He needed 60% for that. A chill made the greenette glance down. Todoroki had frozen most of the contestants to the concrete floor. To nobody's surprise, Class 1A avoided the attack easily, following after the son of the #1 hero closely. Izuku chuckled, upping his output to 30% and bypassing Class 1A with ease. They just sighed and shook their heads, letting Izuku go. The 9th wielder leapt over the robots emerging from the ground, bouncing off their heads as he progressed along the course. Izuku didn't falter when the 0-pointers rose from the ground, blocking most of the contestants' way forward. He just channeled 40% into his legs for a split second as he jumped, adding an unnoticeable boost from float to push his jump over the colossal robots. Izuku Midoriya clears the first obstacle without breaking a sweat. Present Mike screamed into the microphone. Izuku flashed the camera-headed robots a smile before dashing away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. The audience cheered, the roar from the stadium audible even out on the track. Midoriya approaches the second obstacle 5 seconds after clearing the first. What is this, kid? The loudmouth hero screamed again. Izuku didn't hesitate, leaping over the pit and onto the first flat-topped pillar emerging from the gaping hole in the ground. He pushed off with his right foot, landing gracefully on the next pillar, completely bypassing the ropes spanning the gaps between plateaus. Shoto Todoroki obliterates the first obstacle with one cold attack. The moment his feet touched the dirt on the other side, Izuku continued his 40% sprint towards the third and final obstacle. Izuku never came across the final obstacle, although his steps seemed to cause small explosions in the ground once he stepped away. He was only at 40%, though. The green net crossed the finish line, stopping dead in the center of the arena. He wasn't even out of breath. Izuku Midoriya comes in first place in the obstacle course. He's really giving it his all to win. The crowd erupted into cheers as Izuku smiled up at them. That was a nice warm-up. When do the challenges start? He asked Midnight with a familiar grin. There were two results that this gave. 1. The other participants became fired up and worked harder to usurp the one currently on top. 2. It reassured the people watching even further, showing them that he could back up the announcement he made during his speech. I'm here. Midnight cracked her whip, smiling down at the greenette. Don't worry, Midoriya. I'm sure that the next event will get you working. The second event will be a cavalry battle. The 42 of you that passed will form teams of 2 to 4 people and get into a formation similar to the one on screen behind me. There can only be one rider, as they are the one who will wear the team's headband. Each headband has a point value put together from each member's point value earned during the obstacle course. Midnight announced. 42nd place is worth 5 points, 41st is worth 10, and so on. The only exception to the 5-point trend is first place, who is worth 10 million points. Midnight continued. Every student except for 1A turned to Izuku with greed in their eyes. The greenette just chuckled, his stance unfazed. Do your best, everyone. I won't make it easy. Izuku's eyes seemed to glow a deep green. Midnight cracked her whip with a mischievous laugh. You all have 15 minutes to form your teams. Get to it, she said. The students immediately crowded around the top 3 students from the obstacle course placings. Bakugo was surrounded by the group that normally crowded around him, while Todoroki was approached by the majority of the class. Izuku was surrounded by a surprising number of students: Uraraka, a girl from the support course, and a boy with crazy purple hair. Midoriya, let's team up. Uraraka chirped. First place, let me join your team, the pink-haired girl said. Did you really mean what you said during your speech? The purple-haired boy asked. Izuku nodded, giving the boy a smile. Of course. As long as you try your hardest, I'm sure the teachers will notice anyone trying for the hero course. The boy studied his face for a moment before sighing and rubbing the back of his neck. My name's Shinso. Can I join your team? Izuku's smile widened. Of course. That gives us 4, including you, me, Uraraka, and Hatsum. Izuku stood silently for a moment. What's your quirk, Shinso? The purple-haired boy looked uncomfortable but responded anyway. Brainwashing. If someone responds to my question, I can flip a switch in their mind and take control of their motor functions. Izuku nodded. So, I'll be the front horse. Uraraka and Hatsum, you both take the back. Shinso, are you all right with being the rider? The girls nodded, but Shinso just looked confused. But, my quirk? Izuku gave the boy a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Nobody here will judge you for your quirk. Anyone who does is an idiot. Your quirk could be used for literally any profession. You could probably defeat all for one with a single sentence. The boy from General Studies looked about ready to cry, but Midnight called the contestants back to the stage. All right, everybody. Get into formation somewhere in the arena and we can begin. Begin. As predicted, everyone was gunning for Team Shinso immediately. Izuku glanced back at Hatsum. You ready, Hatsum? She gave a maniacal grin and a thumbs up in response. Izuku's grin grew to match hers. Let's do it then. The charging teams could only watch in shock and disappointment as Team Shinso was sent flying into the air. Uraraka and Hatsum had 1 rocket boot each. Shinso had a jetpack. Uraraka used her zero gravity on the heavier equipment, and Izuku used float to lift himself into the air. Together, Team Shinso achieved near-perfect flight. Holy crap! Looks like Team Shinsu's taken to the skies. With Hatsume's tech and Uraraka's zero gravity, they're able to achieve flight. Present Mike exclaimed. Izuku and Nizu had thought it best to keep the extra quirks secret from the public for now. They'd be a nasty surprise for all for one once they finally fought. Alright, how long will your babies last, Hatsume? Izuku asked. They'll all be fine for an hour working like this, she replied. See how amazing my babies are? Izuku nodded. Uraraka, how long will your quirk hold? The brunette smiled. I'll be good for a while. The tech isn't nearly as heavy as I thought it would be. Hatsume cackled. Just another feature. Izuku grinned. Alright, Shinso, any attackers are up to you and me now. The purple-haired boy just nodded, scanning the students below. Deku. Izuku glanced down, spotting the source of the scream immediately. Bakugo had blasted off the ground and was hurtling through the air toward them. At the same time, Team Monoma was launching an assault on them using a plain-looking guy who molded the air, a girl who split her body into pieces, and Monoma himself using both their quirks. You take the blonde with the explosions, I'll deal with the three approaching, Izuku said to Shinso. Hey there, tall, dark and feral. Come here often? Shinso called to Bakugo. Izuku raised his left arm and tucked his middle finger behind his thumb, aiming the flick at the approaching Team Monoma. 50% smash. Class 1B could only squawk in indignation as the wind blast generated sent them hurtling back toward the ground. Izuku looked back in Bakugo's direction to see the vacant blonde get caught by Zero. The physical jolt seemed to break him out of the brainwashing, as he started shouting about an eyebags yesterday. There are only 5 minutes remaining, folks. Present Mike shouted. Looks like nobody's been able to even approach Team Shinso. Will these last 5 minutes push the rest to challenge them? How are you holding up, Uraraka, Hatsume? Izuku asked. Hatsume reassured him that her tech was working at full capacity still, but Uraraka was starting to look a bit pale. I can hold it for longer, she mumbled, holding her stomach. Izuku shook his head. It's all right, Uraraka, we can take it from here. Hatsume, take us down to the ground. The quartet landed gently on the firm dirt below, to the other team's collective delight. They're on the ground. Get them, someone shouted. You want to go, buddy? Shinso asked. Sir. Attack the other teams, the purple-haired boy ordered. Izuku flicked his fingers at any team that tried to approach, shattering barrages of ice, deflecting purple ball, and knocking away airborne objects. Only 2 minutes left, listeners. This is the final push. Present Mike announced. Everyone's efforts began to slow as the teams gave up and desperately fought amongst themselves for points. The final whistle rang out just as Izuku flicked a column of flame away. And it's over. Let's look at the scores. In first place we have Team Shinsu. Present Mike exclaimed. Izuku grinned at his teammates, high-fiving the purple-haired rider. You'll make an amazing hero, Shinso. I hope we'll be in the same class in the future, the greenette said sincerely. Uraraka nodded along with Izuku, giving the surprised teen a bright smile. You're really capable, Shinso. The brainwasher huffed, rubbing the back of his neck with a bashful smile. Thanks. The final event was always the same and always the most anticipated by both the competitors and the audience, the one-on-one tournament. Izuku's first match would be against Uraraka, then either Todoroki or Zero, and then whoever made it to the semifinals, followed by the finals against whoever made it there. Izuku was putting his money on Shinso. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final event of the first year's sports festival. For our first match, we've got a good one. Izuku Midoriya, the student who has so far lived up to his bold announcement, versus Ochako Uraraka, the girl who defies gravity itself. Their match will take place just after an hour lunch break to let the competitors get back into tip-top condition. Present Mike announced. Izuku set his bowl on the table, slumping onto the low bench with a contented sigh. Ida glanced between his two friends, a thoughtful look on his face. What are you thinking about, Ida? Uraraka asked. The bespectacled boy scratched his chin idly. I am unsure as to which one of you I am rooting for. I'm sure it doesn't matter, as I shall defeat you both in the end, he declared confidently. The trio laughed, each boasting about who would come out on top. When the half-hour break was over, Present Mike made another announcement. Will Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka please come to the arena? Izuku and Uraraka stood on opposite sides of the concrete arena. Midnight was on a podium to the left, while Cementos sat on a concrete throne against the wall of the stadium. Are you both ready? Midnight asked. Both students nodded silently, their eyes locked on each other. Begin. Uraraka charged forward, her palms facing Izuku. The greenette activated 20% of his power, zipping towards his opponent in a storm of green lightning. Uraraka swiped her right hand at Izuku, who dodged the attack and grabbed her arm, tossing her toward the edge of the arena. Uraraka recovered quickly, standing ready for Izuku as he charged again. The greenette rolled to the side, lashing out with his feet, which Uraraka hopped over. The girl spun on her heel, swiping at Izuku once more. Just like before, Izuku ducked beneath her flailing arms and pushed her, this time out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya wins the first round. Midnight announced. Izuku's next match was against Ida. The two speedsters stood opposite one another, awaiting the signal to start. Good luck, Midoriya. I know it's unlikely, but I'm going to do my best to win, Ida said. Izuku nodded in return. You too, Ida. Start. Present Mike yelled through the speakers. Ida shot off like a bullet, racing towards Izuku and spinning on his right leg, bringing his left up for a powerful kick. The greenette ducked beneath the kick and jabbed his right fist into Ida's side. Ida stumbled but managed to escape Izuku's range thanks to his superior speed. Izuku increased his output to 30% and charged at the class representative, who attempted the same move again. You need more moves than just kicks, Ida. Good match, Izuku said, launching the taller boy out of bounds. Thank you, Midoriya. I shall take your advice into consideration. Izuku Midoriya wins. Midnight announced. The third match was against Shinso, who had beaten Bakugo in his second match. Unfortunately for the purple-haired student, Izuku understood how his quirk worked by this point in the festival and didn't even need one for all to throw him out of bounds. You should do some muscle training and learn a martial art, or at least how to throw a proper punch. You can't just rely on your quirk all the time, the greenette advised. Izuku Midoriya is the victor. Midnight exclaimed. The final was between Izuku and Todoroki, the successors to both of the most recent #1 heroes, facing off against one another. Midoriya. I will defeat you, Todoroki said, a small smile on his face. Full cowling sparked up, 30% of Izuku's power flowing through his veins. Ready? Start. All for One turned away from his monitors in disgust. He couldn't bear to watch that legacy fight another battle, not after he had started to believe it had truly been snuffed out 9 years ago. The plastic tubes emerging from his face and throat squeaked as they rubbed against one another when All for One turned in his mobile throne. Doctor, he rasped. How is my personal project coming along? A short man with a mustache stepped out of the shadows, his thick-rimmed glasses glinting ominously in the dark room. Excellently, Master. The excess was a challenge at first, but I was able to tweak the energy itself. The extra quirks are slotting seamlessly together, almost as though the Nomu has your own quirk. I will need a fortnight at most to ensure it won't deteriorate during battle, either physically or, well, mentally doesn't matter as much, but it must follow orders properly. All for One's disfigured face twisted into a sick grin, a grotesque imitation of his once nemesis' own smile. It hurt, but he felt the expression was appropriate. The doctor walked through one of the dark hallways, away from All for One's chamber. Izuku Midoriya. One for all will be mine, but before I take it, I am going to break you, the supervillain announced. A monstrous roar echoed from the hallway. The doctor scuttled down, where All for One's pet project was being created. And Izuku Midoriya wins the Sports Festival. Present Mike screamed from the announcer's booth. The greenette walked through the frozen wasteland that was once the arena floor. The concrete had actually caught fire in a couple of places, one of which Izuku stepped around. The ninth holder reached out his hand, helping his new friend to his feet. Good match, Todoroki. I had to use 45% just to get out of the way there, he said. The heterochromic teen sighed, shaking his head with a rueful smile. That doesn't make me feel any better, Midoriya, he chuckled, walking alongside the greenette out of the arena. 10 minutes later, Izuku stood atop the winner's podium with Todoroki on his right and Shinso on his left alongside Kirishima. The one who will be presenting the medals is our very own. Endeavor dropped out of the sky in a burst of flame, the medals in hand. Number 1 hero, Endeavor. Midnight finished. The flaming hero hung Shinso and Kirishima's medals around their necks, speaking to them for a moment in a low voice before moving on to his son. Shoto, I am proud of you, my boy. You lasted the longest out of all of Midoriya's opponents. You'll surpass that musclehead by your 3rd year, he exclaimed, not biased in any way. Shoto accepted his medal with a small smile, whether of pride or embarrassment, Izuku couldn't tell. Midoriya, you have proven your strength, both at the USJ and during the festival. You have also shown that you are All Might's equal in both strength and charisma. Endeavor begrudgingly smiled at the greenette as he hung the golden medal around his neck. Here are your future heroes, the man said, turning to the spectators. These are the men and women who will be the top heroes of the future. Anyone who didn't make it to the podium, do better next year. You all have what it takes. Now, there's only one last thing to say. Endeavor yelled. Plus Ultra. Izuku woke up feeling groggy. How did he end up here? The last thing he remembered was. Izuku sat up in alarm. All Might. He was hurt. And he'd given Izuku his quirk. The little greenette stared at his hands in shock. He could feel it, a sort of energy. Hello there, Izuku, a voice said quietly. Izuku looked up, his curious gaze meeting a tall woman in a hero costume. She seemed to shimmer slightly. Who are you? Izuku asked timidly. The woman smiled kindly, sitting cross-legged on the floor. My name is Nana. I was All Might's teacher, she said. Izuku stared wide-eyed. You are? Did you have one for all too? Did you give it to All Might? He asked quickly. Nana laughed. Yes, I did have one for all. I was the 7th user, and All Might was the 8th, she explained. Izuku frowned in thought. But All Might's been a hero for so long. Even longer than since my mom was little, he said. Are you a ghost? Nana nodded sadly. Yes. All of the past users are alive within One for All, but I'm the first to manifest. Izuku's eyes widened even further, bouncing on his bed in excitement. Does that mean All Might is there? He asked. Nana laughed, getting to her feet. Of course. All of the past users will be with you, even if they don't show themselves for a while, she said. Inko was still working at the hospital in the evacuation zone, so Izuku was home alone all day. To her surprise, Nana could interact with smaller objects and lighter items. She helped Izuku make breakfast and then played heroes with his action figures. Fear not, citizens. Because I am here. Izuku called, holding his All Might figurine in his small hand. Thank you, All Might. Nana cheered, making the civilians jump up and down. Curse you, All Might, the villains said. Izuku looked up at the huge bald man, who was grinning at the 5-year-old, the villains held in some kind of shadowy tendrils. The name's Daigoro. Now, are you going to take down these villains, or what? He asked. Izuku nodded, holding the All Might figure up again. Halt, evildoers, he cried. Izuku, Nana, and Daigoro played with the figurines for a while until a skinny, white-haired man stepped out of Izuku's room holding a board game. Would you like to play Monopoly? He asked timidly. Izuku nodded enthusiastically. My mom and I play it sometimes, but it's more fun with lots of people, he said. The man smiled, sitting down on the floor with the other predecessors. My name is Yoichi. It is nice to meet you, Izuku, he said. Daigoro was a dirty cheater, using his quirk to steal money from the bank and even from the other players. Nana playfully tapped him on the head a few times, but it never discouraged him. Yoichi was very good at Monopoly, making deals with Banjo and Nana that always worked heavily in his favor. Nana struggled with the game, while Izuku didn't really know what he was doing, but he had fun anyway. Another past user joined them about halfway through. He was very quiet, only introducing himself as N. He joined the game and won in 7 rounds, to Yoichi's dismay. Throughout the rest of the day, Izuku was joined by 3 more users of One for All. The second and third didn't give their names, but they were kind to Izuku and played with him alongside the other users. Hikage was the last to appear, other than the 8th. He was a tall man with shoulder-length hair and had 2 jagged cracks on his face, reaching down past his left eye. He was also quiet, but he got along with Izuku just as well as the others. Inko got home late, around 8 in the evening. She quickly made dinner for them, grabbed a change of clothes, kissed Izuku, and sent him to bed before heading back to work. The predecessors had kept him away from the TV or any news about the disaster. They knew through all might that it was bad. The users of One for All crowded around Izuku's bed, wishing him good night. "Good night, Izuku," they said, stepping out through the door. Izuku waved to his new friends, yawning tiredly. "Wake up, Izuku. Izuku." He manifested. Nana said, poking Izuku's cheeks. Izuku blearily opened his eyes. "Who did, Nana?" he asked. He sat up, looking around at the other figures. They just smiled and pointed at the closed bedroom door. A tremendously tall, muscular man phased through the door. His bright smile lit up the room, and his bulging muscles flexed beneath his hero costume. "I am here." All Might laughed, hands on his hips, striking a heroic pose. Izuku's smile was radiant. "All Might," he cheered. The blond man laughed heartily, lifting his arms and flexing his biceps. "Indeed, young Izuku. I am here to help guide you on your chosen path," he said. "Well, you have school soon, so you'd better get ready quickly, Izuku," Nana said. Izuku nodded, jumping out of bed. He remained suspended in the air, his legs flailing about. And coughed. "So, anyone want to talk about Izuku's little stunt?" Dagoro asked. Yoichi hummed, scratching his clean-shaven chin. "I believe he manifested Seven's quirk." "It sure looked like it," he said. Nana nodded. "I agree. I manifested float in almost exactly the same way, but I was on a swing set. I went tumbling for quite a distance until someone caught me," she said. "Is it possible he will manifest other quirks?" Toshinori asked. The second user scratched his head. "Seems likely. We'll need to be careful. Some of our quirks could be dangerous if used incorrectly," he said. With a conclusion reached, the vestiges went back into the quirk office. Izuku was just leaving alongside Inko, who had seen him floating around in his room. The greenette smiled at his invisible friends, who walked alongside him to school. Izuku walked beside the predecessors, holding onto his mother's hand and Daigoro's shadowy tendril. Nana floated upside down above Izuku, her arms crossed, with a serious expression. "Hey, Squirt. We've all been talking. And we think you've manifested my quirk, Float. You'll probably be getting the others' quirks in the future too," she said. Izuku beamed wordlessly at the airborne heroine. "You'll need to keep the other quirk secret. At least until you get into UA. Then you can use my quirk to take down villains," Daigoro said enthusiastically. Izuku smiled at the Black Whip user, nodding slightly. Yoichi sighed sadly. "One for All itself is a strength-enhancing quirk. You'll need to train before you can use it, but even then you must keep it a secret. My brother, the man who created One for All, is a very bad person. He wants the quirk and is probably looking for it right now. Use and train Float until you master it. Make others believe that it is your quirk. It will hide you from my brother and keep you safe until you are strong enough," he said. Izuku's excitement transformed into determination. He nodded at the white-haired man, sealing their promise with a pinky swear behind his mother's back. Yoichi chuckled as he intertwined his ghostly fingers with Izuku's small ones. The predecessors quickly became animated once more. "Now, it would be best if we reveal everyone's quirks now, to prepare young Izuku, no?" Toshinori suggested. Daigoro grinned widely. "That's a great idea, mighty man. My quirk is called Black Whip. It's the tentacle-like things I've used from time to time that come out of my hands," he exclaimed. Nana smiled. I'll teach you about my quirk during playtime. I'll show you how to fly and move in the air, she said. En's eyes sparkled with a smile. My quirk is smokescreen. It's not super powerful, but it can be very useful. Hikage smiled softly. My quirk is called Danger Sense. If something or someone is going to harm me, my quirk will buzz in my mind, letting me know about the threat. The second user sighed. My quirk is called Deadeye. I can control and change the velocity and path of any projectile. These can be rocks, bullets, bits of rubble, or even enemies at a stretch, he explained. The third user chuckled. My quirk is called Brace. I can brace my body against impacts up to a certain strength. It doesn't stop blades or bullets, but a punch or baseball bat won't do much against me. Yoichi hummed thoughtfully. My quirk is One for All, a stockpile strength enhancer. All Might laughed heartily. I was quirkless before receiving One for All, just like you, Izuku. I never received the other quirks, but I used One for All itself to its greatest capacity, he bellowed. Inko dropped Izuku off at school, waving goodbye at the gate. The predecessors followed Izuku to his classroom, where he knocked gently on the door. The door was opened by a young woman with bright blue hair and red eyes. Ah, Izuku, you finished your appointment already, she asked. Izuku nodded, and the teacher smiled. Well, come in and tell us how it went. Everyone. Izuku's back, she called, closing the door behind the greenette. All right, kiddo, here's what you need to do. Izuku stood in the middle of the football field with Nana crouched before him. A few of his classmates stood at the white borders, watching him. You need to want to get up into the sky. Close your eyes and imagine you're floating. Just drifting up into the air, like this. Nana said, lifting off the ground. Izuku closed his eyes, his nose scrunching up in concentration. His stomach fluttered for a moment, causing him to open his eyes. Nana was floating beside him, a meter above the ground. I did it, he cheered. Nana clapped her hands, beaming at the excited 5-year-old. Well done, Izuku. The predecessors cheered from the ground. Izuku and Nana drifted higher into the air. You can feel it, right? The way your stomach feels light? She asked. Izuku nodded, holding his tummy. It's all right, it's supposed to do that. Now, hold on to that feeling and pull it to the right, she instructed. Izuku closed his eyes for a moment, trying to pull himself to the right. Suddenly, he shot off at high speed, stopping when he ceased pulling the quirk. You understand how it works? Nana asked. Izuku nodded enthusiastically. I get it. So if I do it like this. He shot up, higher and higher, swerving left and right, spiraling and performing large loops. Nana flew alongside him, her flight path narrower and more refined. Izuku's movements were big and clumsy, but he compensated with speed. He dove back down, slowing to a stop just above the field. Well done, young Izuku. You did great, kid. Good work, Izuku. Fantastic job, buddy. Well done. That was amazing. The second user gave a thumbs up. That was an excellent first flight. You're a natural, kiddo. Nana congratulated, back on the ground. Thanks, Mama, Izuku beamed. Izuku loved to fly. He cherished the solitude, high in the sky, among the clouds where only Nana and the birds could reach him. It was beautiful above the cloud cover, with rolling hills of white, pink, and blue stretching out endlessly. Nana taught Izuku about aerial maneuvers. While they looked dangerous when performed by warplanes, for Izuku and Nana, it felt like a dance among the clouds. One day, Izuku made a friend up in the clouds. An 11-year-old boy with bright red feathery wings almost collided with him as he emerged from a thick pink cloud. The boy introduced himself as Kigo. Like Izuku, he flew above the clouds to escape everything else and simply be free. Izuku and Kigo often met in the skies above Mizudafu to drift, race, or dance among the clouds. Izuku's second quirk manifested unexpectedly while he was skipping stones at Dagoba Beach with his mother. He watched in shock as a stone hopped once, twice, 3 times, and kept going. Frowning, he chose another stone, which also sailed over the horizon. Deadeye. You can do a lot more than just skip stones with it, you know. Anything you throw, You can control it to an extent. Would you like to try? The second user asked. Izuku nodded eagerly. One day, while training Deadeye with the second user, another quirk manifested. He dropped a stick and reached out to grab it. A thin black tendril emerged from the back of his hand, lashing out to grab the stick and placing it gently into Izuku's hand. Daigoro cheered, ruffling Izuku's hair. Nice one, kid. You've got my quirk now. We can start training it right away, he exclaimed. Izuku smiled at his predecessor. Yes, Daigoro. Izuku manifested danger sense during the second user's surprise Deadeye training. A quiet buzz in his mind alerted him, and he turned just in time to catch the second user's surprise projectile. Hikage smiled. Danger sense is a passive quirk, so it doesn't require much training. You just need to learn to interpret what the various alerts mean, he explained. The third user's brace manifested quite a while later. It was a semi-passive quirk that strengthened temporarily when activated. The second and third users had been teaching Izuku the basics of fighting, and he didn't even feel the second user's gentle swat at his head. The third user's eyes lit up, and he grinned at Izuku. Alright, buddy. Brace is a passive quirk, but you can power it up for a while by activating it. Training increases your durability over time, and eventually, you'll be able to take on buildings, he exclaimed, full of enthusiasm. Izuku laughed, smiling at his predecessor. Please teach me third. During their sparring sessions, a smokescreen manifested. Izuku was trying to stay hidden, and a thick black fog rolled off his body. En chuckled softly. Smokescreen is quite difficult to control. Sometimes the smoke can be thicker than intended because the quirk is influenced by your panicked mental state, wanting to shield you from danger. It can be mastered with training, he said, his eyes curling into a smile. Izuku waved the smoke away, nodding in agreement. When Izuku turned 11, they began to suspect something was wrong. He had developed some decent muscle and had trained his predecessor's quirks to mastery. The issue was that he couldn't activate one for all itself. Izuku could feel the energy buzzing just beneath his skin, but he couldn't quite pull it to the surface. He couldn't use his strongest weapon against All for One. The past users of One for All were worried, but they hoped that UA could help draw the quirk out. If it couldn't, then the world would be in trouble. Izuku managed to keep his quirks a secret from everyone else. Nobody questioned his strange sixth sense, or his incredible aim with rocks, sticks, and darts. His remarkable durability was explained away by rigorous training. Black Whip and Smokescreen were never revealed to others. Izuku made sure to train those two in secret, in the forest behind his house. The Greenette was already an incredible combatant, both with and without his quirks. The predecessors just didn't know if it would be enough to defeat All for One without One for All. Young Izuku, we would like to speak with you, Toshinori said. Izuku looked up from his homework. What is it? He asked curiously. The last time they had asked to talk like this was when they warned him about All for One. It's about UA, or more specifically, two of its staff members, Nana said. Izuku nodded, swiveling in his chair. Principal Nizu and the school nurse, recovery girl, both know about One for All. We believe they can help you with it. My old teacher, Gran Torino, and sidekick Sir Night Eye also know of the quirk. I assure you they can be trusted. Ultimately, it is your choice, Toshinori explained. Nizu is extremely intelligent. He might be able to help you where we could not, Nana added. Izuku nodded with a smile. If you think it's a good idea, then I trust you. You haven't led me wrong yet. Except Daigoro. Seriously, what were you thinking? Ketchup? Izuku asked. Daigoro pouted in the corner while the other ghosts chuckled at him. Nana gently patted Izuku's hair. Even if you don't get One for All in its entirety, I know you'll be an incredible hero, she said. Izuku smiled. Thanks, Mama. Izuku waved to his mother as he floated up to the clouds, breaking through and looking around. A flash of red caught his eye in the distance, so Izuku approached it at top speed. Hey, Kigo! Izuku called. The feathered hero in training turned to face the younger boy. Hey, Izuku! How have you been doing? He asked. Izuku smiled. I've been fine. I finally figured out how to do that move you showed me. It's harder than it looks, especially without wings, he said. Izuku executed a tight spin in the air, transitioning it into a dive and a kick. Kigo clapped, grinning. Nice one. You'll be as good as me before you even get to UA at this rate. Izuku huffed, a teasing smirk on his face. I am as good as you. Better even, he said. Kigo chuckled, dropping into the dense clouds below them. Oh, it's on, he said. Izuku floated down into the clouds, keeping his danger sense focused on his brother. A flurry of sharp feathers shot out from a fluffy white cloud, which Izuku quickly dodged. He caught one as it passed and tossed it toward where he sensed Kigo. Deadeye kept it on track, forcing Kigo to dodge out of the cloud. Izuku surged forward, executing the aerial spinning kick he had done before, sending Kigo through a darker, denser cloud. The winged boy emerged from the cloud, dripping wet and struggling to contain his laughter. They both charged, grappling with one another as they fell. Izuku grabbed onto Kigo's left wing, preventing it from moving. Are you chicken? Izuku teased. The two boys fell for miles, both lying in the air lazily as they plummeted toward the ground. I've gotten better at stopping suddenly, Izu. You might want to give up this time. Kigo called. Izuku just grinned. My quirk protects me from high falls. I can hit the ground at terminal velocity and just get a headache, he said. Kigo looked disbelieving at first, but it slowly turned to panic as they neared the ground. At 10 meters up, Kigo flapped his wings hard, halting his descent. Izuku stopped dead in the air, still in his relaxed position, just a meter off the ground. He stuck out his elbows, wiggling his arms like small wings. Buck, buck, buck. Izuku called up at the teen. Kigo huffed indignantly, taking off back into the sky. I'll be back, hack, he called. Izuku had turned 15 and still had no sign of One for All activating. He had kept up his rigorous training and had 2 exams coming up. The second was UA's entrance exam, and the first was an exam set up by the predecessors. Izuku needed to out-quirk his predecessors using their own quirks. He had the distinct advantage of having One for All boosted quirks, with the original users teaching him all the tricks. Float was incredibly fast and precise. Kigo, now a full pro hero, could barely keep up with Izuku. Black Whip could lift several tons without Izuku's own physical strength assisting. He had such control that he could play operation with the tentacles. Deadeye allowed Izuku to control a projectile for miles, even making drastic direction changes if they were moving fast enough. Brace was remarkably powerful. Izuku could hit cement at terminal velocity and not feel a thing. The cement, however, didn't survive the impact. Duller blades couldn't pierce his skin, but something like a carving knife could. Don't ask. Smokescreen let Izuku control the movement of the smoke with precision. He could see through the black fog better than most people. His danger sense was finely tuned, capable of identifying specific threats like fire or debris, though it usually just buzzed with a general warning. One for All hadn't manifested yet, but it was still gathering energy within Izuku. He had trained for nearly 10 years to handle One for All. Though he was still short and had a youthful face, he was surprisingly muscular beneath his baggy clothes. Daigoro often teased Izuku about his round, freckled face atop a physique that resembled a Greek god. The exam consisted of 8 stages. First, there was quirkless hand-to-hand combat with Yoichi, followed by combat with second, an endurance competition with third, a stealth exercise using danger sense with Hikage, a sparring match using Black Whip with Daigoro, a smokescreen stealth exercise with N, aerial combat with Nana, and finally, an all-out fight with Tashinori, the former #1 hero. It would be Izuku's quirks and techniques against the most powerful hero to ever exist. He felt a mix of excitement and dread. Hand-to-hand combat with Yoichi went smoothly. The first user had taught Izuku every martial art he knew from the pre-quirk era, and Izuku had built on that, practicing modern martial arts he found online. Combat with Deadeye was just as straightforward. He used small pebbles to deflect Second's projectiles and then struck back. The endurance match with Third was simple enough, as they exchanged blows until one of their braces gave out, and Izuku outlasted the third user. The stealth exercises were done together, using smokescreen to hide from N and danger sense to avoid Hikage. Black Whip combat was engaging, with Izuku and Daigoro swatting each other's black whips away and attempting quick strikes. Izuku ultimately won by sending a large, entwined black whip at Daigoro, who couldn't deflect it with his smaller ones. Aerial combat was exhilarating. Izuku and Nana spiraled through the clouds in a dogfight, exchanging kicks and punches. Izuku's superior hand-to-hand skills allowed him to win, as they were evenly matched in terms of float. The final test was surprisingly easy. Toshinori struggled against a flying, danger-sensitive, smoke-emitting Izuku with impeccable aim and resilient skin. Izuku stood nervously at Yue's gates, glancing at his buzzing phone. "Good luck, bro. I know you'll ace the exam." He tucked his phone away and approached Yue, only to trip over a rock. "Ah! Kid, what are you doing?" Daigoro laughed heartily. Izuku managed to catch himself with float, pulling himself upright. He shot a glare at Daigoro, only to be interrupted by a voice. "Oh, you caught yourself. I was going to catch you. It would be bad luck if you fell." Izuku turned to see a pretty brunette with rosy cheeks smiling at him. "This," he stammered. "Well, I'll see you inside," she said, walking away. Daigoro burst into laughter again, earning a light cuff on the head from Nana. The exam was straightforward. They had to defeat an army of robots in a simulated city. Some robots were worth 1 point, others 2, and some 3. One robot, known as the zero-pointer, was just an obstacle and not worth any points. Izuku would not describe the zero-pointer as merely annoying. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a perfect 10 on the terrifying scale. Izuku had been performing well in the exam, using float and brace to slam into and destroy robots with ease. About 8 minutes in, there was a rumble. A massive robot rolled down the main street, demolishing everything in its path. Teenagers were running and screaming, and Izuku almost turned to follow them almost. A cry of pain made him turn back, and the next moments passed in a blur. He rushed to the brunette from earlier, dodging chunks of concrete and twisted metal. The energy that usually hummed beneath his skin surged. Izuku jumped, green lightning crackling around him. Izuku woke up to 8 worried faces that lit up when they saw he was conscious. "Izuku, you're awake. Kid, that was incredible. Young Izuku, that was very heroic. How are you feeling, Squirt? You gave us quite a fright." Izuku groaned as he sat up, his right arm and both legs aching. "What happened?" he asked. "You broke your body using your quirk, Sonny," a voice said. Izuku turned to see Recovery Girl. "The youthful heroine, Recovery Girl," he exclaimed. The old lady chuckled as she approached his bedside, unaware of the 8 concerned figures lingering nearby. "I've healed you for the most part, but you're going to feel sore for a day or 2. Other than that, you're just fine," she explained. Izuku thanked her and left Yue's infirmary, walking painfully down the steps outside. "So, what happened?" he muttered quietly. "You used one for all, Izuku. It was too powerful and it broke your limbs. It was only for an instant, but you became even stronger than Toshinori when you defended that girl," Yoichi said. Izuku grinned. "I really drew the energy out? It's right back in place though, I can't even touch it. Maybe I could only use it because I was in danger? Perhaps it knew it was needed in that moment," he mused. Nana laughed, ruffling his hair. "With enough training, you won't be breaking your bones next time. Now, let's get you home so you can have a proper rest," she said, her motherly instincts kicking in. Izuku nodded in agreement. Sleep sounded wonderful right now. 3 weeks later, Izuku's letter finally arrived. Daigoro, who had grown impatient, had spent the last week waiting at the mailbox for the telltale UA emblem to show up. The others learned the letter had arrived when Daigoro began shouting, "It's here! Kid, the letter's here!" He barreled through the bedroom door, making the paper flutter on Izuku's desk. Izuku opened the door and picked up the letter that hadn't phased through the door alongside the excited Daigoro. He sat down at his desk, staring at the letter in his hands. "You did amazingly, Squirt. Open it, I'm sure you passed," Nana encouraged. All Might nodded in agreement. "Indeed, Izuku, I'd say your score was more than enough to pass the exam. Perhaps even enough to secure first place." Toshinori added, "Thanks, Mama, Toshi, Izuku replied. Just open it, kid. Daigoro urged after a moment. Izuku tore the letter open, and a metal disc clattered onto the table. A holographic screen lit up above the disc, revealing a small creature that resembled a mix of a rat, bear, and mouse. Hello there. Am I a rat? A dog? A mouse? A bear? Who knows? Most importantly, I'm the principal, he announced. Izuku stared in surprise. He's Principal Nizu? He asked. Yes, indeed. He was the principal when I was at UA. I can't believe he's still running the school, Nana replied. Now, on to your results. You almost achieved a perfect score on the written exam, which I am particularly impressed by. Your practical exam was a spectacle in itself. You used float to excellent effect, even utilizing the velocity dampening aspect to protect yourself from impacts. Quite an impressive strategy. You earned a total of 88 villain points, which would be enough to pass on its own. However, that was not all. Your grand finale really put the cherry on top, awarding you an excellent rescue point score of 60. You scored first place overall. Very well done, Midoriya, the hologram said. The predecessors cheered, ruffling Izuku's hair, patting him on the back, and jumping up and down in excitement. Now, onto your rather eye-catching display, the hologram continued. The vestiges stopped celebrating, glancing at the screen warily. Toshinori didn't seem too worried. You can both fly and brace your body, but you also used what seems to be another quirk, entirely a strength enhancer of sorts. Having two quirks, or even more, is highly unlikely. Nizu narrowed his eyes. So I'm sure that it was just a trick of the light. You probably just used float to power through the giant robot. The creature seemed to cheer up. Significantly. Anyway, welcome to your hero academia, Mr. Midoriya. Now Toshinori looked worried. So, did any of the students catch your eye this year, Shota? Midnight asked. Aizawa grumbled but turned to Nizu at the head of the table. The green-haired kid. The one that took down the zero-pointer. It looked like he had multiple quirks. What is his quirk? He asked. Nizu frowned, skimming through a few papers in front of him. I was going to bring this up later. His quirk is registered as float. He can fly, and his quirk also protects him from high-speed impacts. However, what he used to defeat the zero-pointer was definitely not float. It was a strength enhancer that his body wasn't prepared for, so it broke him, the animal said. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Do you mean? Nizu nodded, while the other teachers' expressions grew serious. I'm sure everyone here knows about him, the man who killed the previous symbol of peace. The only way Midoriya could have multiple quirks would be if he worked for that monster. I'm putting him in your class, Aizawa. You have the best chance of stopping him with your own quirk if he has others we don't know about, Nizu said. Aizawa nodded. I'll keep my eye on him. The moment he steps out of line, I'm bringing him in. Izuku was drifting in the clouds above Mizutafu Park when Kigo came flapping in. Oh, Izuku, did you pass? Come on, you had to have passed, right? How many points did you get? Which class are you in? The blonde asked excitedly. Izuku just held up the physical copy of the holographic acceptance letter, which had accepted written in bold across the top. Kigo let out a joyful squeal and tackled his brother in a full-limb hug, arms, legs, and wings. That, of course, meant they plummeted. You did it! He shrieked over the howling wind in their ears. I'm in Class 1A. Izuku replied. Kigo made some excited noises as they neared the ground. Izuku activated float, slowing their descent. Kigo let go of Izuku and flapped his wings. They were only 100 meters up. Race you to the top of the second cloud bank. Izuku exclaimed, floating up into the air. Last one, there's a sloppy flyer. Kigo said, shooting off into the sky. Izuku walked up to UA's gates, the ghostly heroes following right behind. Daigoro was chattering away to the other users while Nana and Toshinori walked alongside the greenette, admiring the grounds. It's just as I remember it. Toshinori mumbled. Izuku smiled at his predecessor, walking through the main doors and along the corridor. Do either of you know where 1A is? Izuku muttered under his breath. Toshinori gave a hearty laugh and a thumbs up. Worry not, Izuku. I know exactly where it is. Follow me. They were completely lost 10 minutes later. I could have sworn it was right here. Toshinori muttered, staring at the janitor's closet. Nana sighed, running a hand down her face. Of course, the rat would change the layout every so often. Oh, hey, a familiar voice said. Izuku turned around. The girl from the entrance exam, the one in the rubble, was standing behind him. Hello. Izuku said. Are you looking for 1A? She asked excitedly. Izuku just nodded. The brunette beamed. Great, me too. I'm Ochako Uraraka, by the way. I Izuku Midoriya, the greenette replied. Uraraka pointed down the corridor. Isn't that one down there? We are never trusting you with directions again, 8th, Daigoro said, a large grin on his face. Toshinori wilted, his gaze focused on the ground as Nana patted his arm comfortingly. Izuku shook the bespectacled boy's hand. I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you, Ida. A caterpillar crawled up to the door. If you're just here to make friends, then you can leave. Everyone turned to the thing outside the door. It stood up and unzipped, letting a bedraggled man slouch into the room. It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down. That's unacceptable in the hero course. You need to manage your time better. I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. Put on these gym uniforms and head outside. With that, the man slouched away, leaving the class in shock. Izuku arrived on the field among the other male students. Aizawa was waiting for them, but he seemed to scowl when his gaze landed on Izuku. The man looked familiar, but Izuku wasn't sure how or why. Aizawa looked away from Izuku after a long moment, instead turning to Bakugo. Bakugo, you scored the highest villain points on the entrance exams. How far could you throw a ball in middle school? The blonde thought for a second before smirking. About 70 meters. Aizawa tossed him a ball. Throw this with your quirk. It doesn't matter how you do it, just stay inside the circle over there, he said. Bakugo scoffed, stepping into the white circle. I'll add a blast to this pitch. Die! A huge explosion propelled the ball into the distance, shaking the ground with tremendous force. The machine in Aizawa's hand beeped, displaying the student's distance. 706.5 meters. Impressive. The other students began to get excited. We get to use our quirks as much as we want? Awesome, a blonde boy exclaimed. This looks like fun. A girl with bright pink hair added enthusiastically. Aizawa's expression darkened. You think this is fun? How about we raise the stakes? Whoever scores last overall will be expelled immediately. How's that for fun? You can't do that, the pink girl protested. That's not fair. Uraraka murmured quietly. I can and I will. UA gives its teachers the freedom to teach as they see fit. That means I can do whatever I want in this class. The world isn't fair. Get used to it, Aizawa replied. Now come on. Go beyond, plus ultra, as our school motto says, he added with a smirk. Izuku was not in last place for any of the tests. His years of training had prepared him for most situations. Even with their quirks, the other students struggled to keep pace with him. Only the girl with the creation quirk consistently matched his scores. Occasionally, someone with a specialized quirk would outdo him, but Izuku remained at the top for every test. He didn't even rely on his quirk for most of them, only using float during the 50-meter sprint and endurance run to keep up with Ida and Yaoyorozu. The ball throw was saved for last, and Bakugo didn't need to participate since he had already demonstrated his throw. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku approached the hero and accepted the ball, ignoring the intense glare directed at him. He stepped into the circle and pulled his arm back, knowing this would be the one test where he wouldn't excel. Many of the others had quirks suited for this challenge. Suddenly, Izuku felt a spike of danger, then it vanished. Daigoro's chatter was silenced, and Nana's warning shout was cut off by an eerie stillness. Izuku glanced around. Aizawa's hair floated, and his eyes glowed red. His white scarf hovered around him, twitching with each movement of his hands. Izuku's eyes widened. Of course. You're the erasure hero, Eraserhead, he exclaimed. Aizawa looked mildly surprised but didn't release his quirk. Why aren't you giving it your all? Do you think you can just breeze through the hero course without effort? Izuku frowned and tossed the ball to Aizawa. Here, Eraserhead. Throw that as far as you can using your quirk. Once you do that, I'll throw the ball using float. If you don't get a good score, you obviously don't have any potential and should consider another career. The class fell silent. Aizawa stared at Izuku, his eyes wide. A moment passed before the hero's capture weapon lashed out. Still quirkless, Izuku sidestepped, grabbing the fabric and yanking on it. Another loop was thrown at him, but he dodged and caught it with the same hand. Izuku pulled the hero toward him. Your test is incredibly biased against non-physical quirks. I would have thought you would be more sympathetic to those kinds of powers, but I guess I was wrong. You're just another person who thinks quirks are everything, like everyone else. Now, are you going to take your throw or admit you're mistaken? Izuku challenged. The hero retracted his scarf and let his hair fall back into place. Take your throw, he said, tossing the ball back to Izuku. Change your test, Izuku replied, tossing the ball casually behind him. The pad chirped, registering 13 meters. Izuku returned to the class, where Nana and the others surrounded him with concern. Izuku, are you okay? Can you hear us? Nana asked. Izuku stood at the back of the class, glancing sideways at Nana and blinking. The predecessors sighed in relief, ruffling his hair. That's good. We were worried for a moment there, Toshinori said. Izuku listened as Aizawa discussed his logical ruse and revealed the scores. Even with his failure during the final test, Izuku ended up at the top of the leaderboard. Deku, how did you get the top score? Bakugo shouted at him. Hard work, Izuku replied blankly. At the end of the day, Izuku was approached by Ida, who speed walked up to him. Midoriya, Ida called. Izuku paused just inside the UA gate and turned back toward the main entrance. Ida marched to his side, standing straight as a rod. Would you mind if I accompanied you? He asked. Izuku shook his head. Not at all. Did you enjoy the first day? He asked. Before Ida could respond, another voice shouted, Hey you guys! Are you going to the station? Wait for me. Uraraka called as she ran to catch up. The boys stood patiently at the gate as the brunette approached. You're Tenya Ida, and your name is Deku Midoriya, right? She asked innocently. Deku, the brunette replied, surprised. Uraraka nodded. Yeah, remember earlier when that explosion guy was all like, Deku, you be Esther D, she said, mimicking Bakugo's tone perfectly. The predecessors burst into laughter, while Izuku chuckled. He calls me that to try and make fun of me. I got my quirk later than everyone else, so he used to call me useless, Izuku explained. Uraraka gasped quietly. I'm so sorry. I thought it was like, you can do it, like D-Kairu, you know? Izuku smiled. You can call me Deku if you want. Ida waved his arms robotically. But wasn't it an insult? He asked incredulously. The meaning is different now, Izuku insisted. Daigoro wiggled his eyebrows at Izuku, while the third tried to give him a subtle noogie. Izuku rolled his eyes at them when his new friends weren't looking. The next day, Izuku returned to Class 1A alongside Ida and Uraraka. Their first heroics lesson was today, and they were all eager to get to class. A few minutes after their arrival, there was a flutter of movement at the window as it was pulled open from the outside. Greetings, little heroes. I'll be your general heroics teacher until a more suitable hero is found for the job. Get your costumes on and head out to ground beta. We're doing some general ability training today, the number 3 hero announced. Hawks stood before Class 1A, appraising each of their costumes. All of your costumes look pretty good. Most of them seem functional, which is the whole point. I'm sure each of you has different abilities and strengths because of your quirks. Today, we'll be showcasing them to the class, seeing where everyone stands and looking for good combinations, Kigo said. He pointed at Izuku. Green dude. What can you do? He asked. Izuku stepped forward, crouching down. Catch me if you can, Hawks, Izuku said playfully, grinning at his bird brother. The hero spread his wings and jumped in sync with Izuku, the pair soaring into the sky together. Several of his classmates gasped and cheered as they soared higher into the sky above ground beta. You didn't tell me you were teaching at UA. Izuku complained. I wanted it to be a surprise. Surprise? Kigo replied. Now, let's see what you can do, Izuku. The green net needed no further encouragement, shooting off at an angle and arcing across the sky in a giant loop. The winged hero hovered in place, watching Izuku dart around him, pulling off impossible turns at incredible speeds. Kigo threw a couple of feathers at the younger boy, but they were swiftly dodged without a moment's thought. The hero lashed out, but Izuku evaded and countered in a single swift maneuver. Come on, Izuku, let's get back down, he said. The hero tucked in his wings, and the student turned off his quirk. They both plummeted, building immense speed as they approached the ground. Izuku stuck out his elbows and wiggled them as they fell, making loud chicken noises. Kigo huffed, flapping his wings in one big gust, landing safely on the concrete. Izuku hit the ground feet first. The concrete cracked beneath his feet, but the green net was unharmed. He received cheers and applause from his classmates before Kigo selected the next hero in training. Mr. Knight in shining armor. What can you do? No, the futuristic one, not the twinkly one. Yeah, the fast one. There you go. Once everybody had showcased their various abilities, Hawks stood before the class again. All right, how many of you know any martial arts? About half the class raised their hands. Split them into pairs, with one person who didn't know any fighting style being taught by someone who did. Izuku was paired up with Uraraka, who seemed eager to learn hand-to-hand combat. So, what are your thoughts? Nizu asked. He was pretty quiet until I tried to encourage him during the ball throw. He barely used his quirk and didn't perform well in the last test, yet he still came out on top of the class by a significant margin, Aizawa said. Did he show signs of a quirk we haven't seen before? The rodent inquired. Aizawa shook his head. No, he relied on float for each of the tests. I didn't see him use any strength or speed enhancers. He remained unfazed when I used erasure on him. He caught my capture weapon with ease and used his natural strength to pull me off balance. Even with erasure. I don't know if I could beat him, he continued. Nizu hummed in thought. Until we know what he is after, it would be best to leave him be. We can't risk anyone's safety until we know for sure he's planning something nefarious. For all we know, he could just be observing the heroes of the future or looking for powerful quirks, Nizu surmised. Hawks is conducting a skill check and basic hand-to-hand training today, and the class is doing a rescue exercise on Friday, so we'll be able to see just how powerful he really is, Aizawa said. Whatever nefarious deeds he might be planning, we will put a stop to them, Nizu said solemnly. Izuku floated up without his quirk, arms crossed and an unamused expression on his face. There was a noticeable mark on his cheek. Uraraka put her fingers together, blushing in embarrassment. You surprised me. I didn't mean to do it, she said earnestly. Izuku sighed, poking his cheek. Daigoro was laughing, leaning on third for support, who was trying to keep his chuckles contained. Well, at least it'll be effective against villains. But technique training was this morning, oh martial one, Izuku said, landing gracefully on his toes. Ida sped towards them from the main building. Uraraka, please do not use your quirk outside of training, he hollered. Uraraka blushed again, hiding her face in her hands. Izuku had approached her after school, tapping her shoulder to ask if she wanted to walk with him and Ida. He had received a slap across the face and a playful throw that almost sent him tumbling. Did you want to walk to the station together? She asked the two boys. Well, now I'm not going to, Izuku said, crossing his arms and pouting to the left. Ida waved his hands around in indignation. Midoriya, you cannot refuse after being asked so politely. Why can you not? Have you fallen out with Uraraka? You should mend your friendship at once. We should all get along to ensure that our academic. Izuku and Uraraka crept away as Ida spun on his heel, gesturing and yelling about road safety to the empty space they had just occupied. Izuku had a strange dream the night before their rescue training trip. A man stood before him, dressed in a smart suit, appearing like an average businessman. Yet the aura he exuded was one recognized by Izuku. He had never met this man before, yet some part of him deep inside knew. This man was all for one. He had a handsome face framed by snow-white hair and narrow red eyes. A sinister smile twisted his handsome features into something menacing. "So, Izuku Midoriya. You're his successor." All for One's eyes gleamed. That's convenient. I look forward to making your acquaintance, young man." Deep shadows swirled around the man and the boy, blocking out everything except themselves and the rocky floor. "What do you want?" Izuku asked angrily. All for One chuckled, his eyes curling in glee. "I want your quirk, young Izuku. Give it to me and I might just let your friends live. I will never give you one for all." Izuku snarled. The man's sadistic smile disappeared, and his features smoothed. "You're as stubborn as your master. Very well. If it takes a few unfortunate events for you to give it up, so be it." Uraraka. Was it? And Ida too. I wonder if their cries will convince you. Izuku lunged at the villain, who vanished in a puff of black mist the moment Izuku reached him. The black fog swirled, drawing nearer, with All for One's laughter slowly fading away. Izuku jerked awake, his chest heaving, cold sweat making his pajamas cling to him uncomfortably. "Hey, are you okay?" Nan asked. Izuku ran his hand down his face, rubbing his tired eyes. "Yeah," he said eventually. "Just a bad dream." Izuku was slumped in his seat on the bus, eyes closed as he tried to get some sleep. He hadn't rested well after waking up last night, so he was exhausted. "Hey, are you all right, Deku?" Uraraka asked from his right. "Yeah," he replied quietly. "Just didn't sleep well last night." Nana was floating above him, gently petting his hair. The other predecessors were scattered around the bus, doing whatever caught their attention. Second was inspecting Bakugo, while Third and Daigoro were doing a ridiculous dance right in front of Izuku. It wasn't very funny in his sleep-deprived state. En sat quietly at the back while Hikage talked to Yoichi nearby, with En chiming in occasionally. Aizawa watched him warily. Had he not slept enough last night? Was he up to something? Uraraka spoke up again. "Well, we've got a few hours until we reach the training facility. The campus is huge. You can sleep if you want to. You'll need your energy for training." Izuku smiled. "I'll do that." "I wonder if their cries for help will convince you," she teased. Izuku jolted awake for the second time that day, his gaze snapping to the right, where Uraraka was gently shaking him. "We're almost there, Deku," she said quietly. "Ah, thanks," he muttered. "Are you going to tell us what you dreamt about this time?" Nan asked. Izuku shook his head slowly, hoping no one would notice. The heroine sighed and ruffled his hair. "All right, but if you keep having nightmares, we're going to talk," she said sternly. "By the way, kiddo," she continued, "your teacher's been watching you the whole trip. He hasn't done anything except pretend to sleep, but it's kind of creepy." Aizawa stood up from where he was sitting, his eyes lingering on Izuku for a moment before he addressed the whole bus. Izuku narrowed his eyes. "What was that about?" "All right, we're here. When you get off the bus, you'll meet the hero instructing you today. Now, get going." The class piled out of the bus and walked toward the huge domed building, where a single hero stood waiting for them. "It's 13. Uraraka squealed, shaking Izuku's arm. "I love 13. The space hero chuckled bashfully, waving at her. "Good morning, Class 1A. Welcome to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ. Man, they're really pushing for that acronym," Nana muttered. "Please, come inside. I have a few things to say, then we will get started with your rescue training." The class entered the vast facility, gazing down at all the areas. There was a burning city, a mountain zone, a shipwreck, a landslide, and many more specialized environments for rescue training. 13 stopped at the edge of the staircase and turned to the class. Aizawa approached the hero and spoke quietly. "Where is Hawks?" he asked. "You know how he is." "He'll probably be here in a few minutes," 13 whispered back. 13 beamed at the students. "Now, let's talk about quirks. I'm sure many of you have powerful quirks, but have you thought about this? They can easily be used to hurt, and even kill people. My own quirk, Black Hole, SCKS in and disintegrates things on a molecular level. It can easily be used to cause harm." The atmosphere turned serious. "That is why you are here." To train your quirks not to harm people, but to save lives. The class applauded, their spirits lifted. Now, 13 was interrupted by the lights flickering, and the sensors around the dome were hit by an electrical surge. An unsettling aura pressed against Izuku's mind. Danger sense spiked through his head like never before. Even without the quirk going haywire, he knew what it was warning him about, the deep-rooted fear of one man, ingrained in every one for all holder. Danger sense had 6 alerts. You're in danger. Someone else is in danger. You are about to die. You are about to be hurt. There is a small threat, but no physical harm will come to you. He is here. A deep purple mist formed in the courtyard below, and a single man stepped through. He was dressed in a sharp suit, a menacing smile stretching across his lips. The only difference was the narrow red eyes full of malice and his snowy white hair. He was heavily scarred, missing everything above his nose except for his warped, shiny skin. Good morning, heroes. I apologize for the interruption. However, someone here possesses something very dear to me. If Izuku Midoriya could return my property, then I'll be on my way. All for One's empty eye sockets stared into Izuku's green eyes as he spoke. Deku, who is that? What did you take from him? Uraraka asked, worry creasing her brows. Aizawa pulled his goggles down and prepared his capture weapon. 13, get the students out of here. Midoriya, we'll talk later. I'll hold him off. Black Whip lashed out and grabbed Aizawa, preventing him from leaping down. The students gasped in shock, while Aizawa remained unfazed. You know who he is, Izuku said quietly. Aizawa nodded. You know exactly what he's capable of. You won't even get close. Erasure might not be able to nullify all of his powers. The only one here who can stand up to him is me. Help 13 evacuate the others. I'll hold him off. Izuku, no, Nana began. Aizawa frowned. What makes you think I'll leave you here with him? How do we know you don't work for him? Izuku's eyes narrowed. Work for him? What? He asked in confusion. Aizawa pulled his goggles down. You have multiple quirks. How can you not be working for him? The other students watched the exchange in confusion. 13 was on the same wavelength as Aizawa. Don't work for All for One? You're not here to scout for powerful quirks. Aizawa asked. As though I'd trust someone chosen by that oaf with such an important job, All for One said from Izuku's left. The greenette spun, throwing Aizawa toward the students and 13. All of you run. Get out of here. Mr. Aizawa, warn the school. Let Nizu know the 9th is facing him. Black Whip grabbed the villain and tossed him back to the courtyard as Izuku leapt off the stairs and raced after him with Float. Black Whip lashed around Izuku as he floated a few meters off the ground. Danger sense buzzed in the back of his head, and a trickle of smoke seeped from his forearms, curling around him like a cloak. Brace hardened Izuku's skin, making him nearly indestructible, and Deadeye was kept at the ready, just below his skin. All for One gazed up at his opponent, a surprised look on his face. You have their quirks. I recognize each of them. How interesting. There is no lightning, no hum of power in your body, however. Can you not use one for all itself? He asked, his grin widening. Izuku scowled, Black Whip stabbing forward like a spear, aimed straight at All for One. The villain dodged, floating up to Izuku's height with one of his own quirks, Airwalk. Now then, shall we begin? Aizawa managed to herd the students back onto the bus and drove a distance away. 13 joined them, reassuring the students that Midoriya would be all right. They could still see the USJ about 1,000 meters away, bright lights and clouds of dust swirling within the glass dome. Mr. Aizawa, how could we just leave him? Uraraka asked. Aizawa had his phone to his ear, ignoring the students. Aizawa, we're on our way. The sensors and cameras suddenly cut out, which would never happen under normal circumstances unless the cameras themselves were destroyed. What's going on? It's All for One. He was after Midoriya. He said Midoriya had something of his that he wanted back. Midoriya used some kind of black tentacle to grab me and toss me away, yelling for us to run. Nizu hummed thoughtfully. Midoriya could be a former underling who ran away once he was gifted powerful quirks. Nizu muttered, a little unsure. He gave me a message for you, Aizawa said. What is it? The rodent asked. He said to tell you that the ninth is fighting all for one. Do you know what that means? Aizawa asked. There was a long pause. The class was quiet, waiting for the conversation to continue. Nizu cursed and spoke into the phone. I didn't think it was possible. I thought it would have died with him for sure. Aizawa, Midoriya is the only one who can stop all for one. Ignore all of my previous theories. Aizawa, this is good. This is a very, very good thing. Midoriya possesses the only quirk that can stop that man, and it seems he's unlocked yet another of its secrets. So, Midoriya is not an undercover villain working for the symbol of evil. Nizu laughed, the small chuckle turning into a full-blown cackle. No, he's the successor of the previous #1 hero, the symbol of Peace's chosen heir. It seems we owe that boy an apology. We'll be there in 10 minutes. I'm activating turbo mode. Several cries of no came through the phone, then the call cut to static and disconnected. Aizawa sighed, putting his phone away. Apparently, the ground shook with a mighty shockwave, and something came sailing out of the USJ's main doors, hurtling toward the bus. Izuku dodged another swipe of the villain's knife hand, wrapping Black Whip around the arm and throwing the villain across the USJ for the 20th time. All for One just laughed, picking himself up and choosing a different quirk to mess with Izuku. If you cannot use One for All, then you cannot truly face me, the villain taunted. Izuku, run. You can't face him like this. Nana pleaded. Come on, kid, you've gotta go. Izuku spiraled around the fireballs launched at him, lashing out with Black Whip again and slamming All for One into the staircase. The villain lay still. Izuku approached the villain warily, Black Whip at the ready. All for One's arms stretched, grabbing Izuku by the throat and yanking him forward, off balance. Izuku, the vestiges cried, unable to do anything. Spring-like limbs, such a useful quirk. All for One chuckled as Izuku thrashed in his grip, Black Whip and smoke screen going haywire. Without All Might's strength, you didn't stand a chance. Give me One for All, and I might spare your friends' lives. I may be a villain, but I'm also a businessman. I follow through on deals and promises. Give me your quirk, young Izuku, and I promise your friends will remain unharmed as long as I am the symbol of evil. If you don't, I'll make you watch as I incapacitate that brunette. After I take her quirk, of course. Izuku pulled his fist back, his expression a mask of fury. All for One chuckled. Go on, strike me, see what happens, the villain taunted. Izuku, don't, the vestiges called. Green energy discharged around Izuku like lightning, concentrated around his right arm. Izuku's furious glare transformed into a victorious grin, while All for One's mouth hung open in surprise. Detroit. He released Izuku and managed to take a single step back before the One for All fueled punch thundered into his face. Smash! All for One went crashing through the main doors and flying into the distance. Without missing a beat, Izuku grabbed the open door frame with Black Whip, slingshotting himself after the villain. Float activated at the apex of his launch, and One for All further fueled the quirk, sending him rocketing after All for One. Izuku let One for All spread through both legs and straightened himself in midair, flying just above the flailing All for One. Carolina. The villain's eyes widened as Izuku's red shoes catapulted him into the ground, the dirt and stone crumbling beneath the man's tough body. Smash! Izuku reached out and wrapped Black Whip around him, yanking the villain back into the sky. Oklahoma. Izuku's fist met the villain's midsection, earning a wheeze from the man. Smash! All for One went sailing through the air but was stopped when Izuku materialized before him, his fist at the ready once again. Texas. All for One's face met the ninth's fist once more, sending him back toward the shattered ground below. Smash! Izuku followed the villain, snagging him with Black Whip and throwing him high into the air. The ninth landed on the ground, crouching down. One for All flooded through his whole body, the ground cracking beneath him. Float, Black Whip, One for All, and Deadeye were ready for the final attack. As All for One began his descent, Izuku exploded from the ground, the wind howling around him. Float added extra speed to his ascent, bringing the hero and villain closer together at incredible speeds. Black Whip soared into the sky ahead of Izuku, wrapping itself around All for One's throat. The villain was pulled toward Izuku at a greater speed than before, only able to watch as the small boy drew nearer. Come on, my boy. It's time for the final attack. The smash to end all others. Don't be so dramatic, Toshi. But seriously, squirt, lay it into him. Yes. My brother has sat on his throne long enough. End it, Izuku. Give it to him, kid. Turn his insides to mush. I think he's going for the head, fifth. Although whatever's left in there, sure, go for it. HM. The kid's really doing it. Finish him. Be quiet, third. Izuku's leap, All for One's fall, Float's added speed, and Black Whip drawing them together would have been enough on its own to defeat a man. Add one for all, and it would most definitely be enough to take down a supervillain. Izuku's fist hammered into his nemesis's skull with the impact of a meteor strike. United. Sis. Of SMASH. The Greenet roared, following the punch through and letting go of Black Whip, allowing the force of the strike to deal with the villain. All for One vanished, the only thing left behind a slowly quieting scream as he approached the upper atmosphere and went beyond. Plus Ultra. He grinned at his predecessors, who were cheering loudly. Mama. I think I'm going to pass out, he muttered. Izuku dropped out of the sky and went hurtling back to Earth. Izuku opened his eyes, once again in the infirmary. Why was he here this time? His eyes widened as he remembered. All for One. He had completely defeated him. Demon right you did, kid. That was some serious strength. And the way you used our quirks together. Man, you're cool. Daigoro bellowed. Quiet down, Daigoro, he's just woken up. Nana scolded. Yes, Mum, he grumbled. Tashinori ruffled Izuku's hair. I doubt he'll be bothering you again anytime soon. You hit him so fast he couldn't even think. I could barely keep up, and I was the fastest of all of us. He grinned. You did a good job, Squirt. I'm proud of you, Nana said, ruffling his hair once Tashinori was done. Yuichi nodded. Thank you for fulfilling our purpose, he said. Izuku smiled. It's all right. That's what family is for. Duh, kid, you're gonna make me cry. Daigoro said. The predecessors laughed amongst themselves as Recovery Girl pulled the curtain back to check on Izuku. Oh, you're awake. How are you feeling? She asked kindly. I'm okay. Nothing hurts. What happened after I passed out? He asked, sitting up. That Uraraka girl and Siro caught you. The other heroes and I arrived on the scene as you dealt the final blow, Recovery Girl smiled. You're just like him, you know. Izuku chuckled. Thank you. That means a lot. Izuku had been out for 12 hours. Everyone had gone home, apart from a few members of staff, which included Nizu and Aizawa. Izuku stood in Nizu's office while the two heroes seemed a little sheepish. We would like to apologize, Midoriya. We couldn't see past the fact that you possessed multiple quirks and were very narrow-minded, believing you to be an agent of the very man you are sworn to destroy. Speaking of him, Nizu said. The rodent pulled out his phone and put it on speakerphone on the large desk. Hello. Good evening, Mr. Tsukasa. Apologies for the late call. I just wanted one last update on the villain you're tracking, Nizu said. The man on the other end hummed in thought. He is approximately 822,342,965 miles from my position. His speed and trajectory haven't changed. He'll have left the solar system by Monday. Nizu thanked Mr. Tsukasa and hung up the call. Should he even be alive, it is highly unlikely that All for One will ever return to Earth. Mr. Tsukasa can track a person indefinitely, so long as he has some of their DNA on hand. We got All for One's blood from your knuckles, and Mr. Tsukasa has been tracking him for hours. Izuku bowed politely. Thank you for making sure he really was dealt with. And the whole All for One misunderstanding is okay. I would have suspected the same thing if I were in your shoes. Am I all right to go home? I'm still pretty tired. Aizawa nodded. Get home and rest, problem child. You've more than earned it. Thank you for protecting your classmates, the bedraggled pro said. Izuku nodded to the teachers and left the office. He was going to sleep for a long time. And maybe eat? Katsudon sounded good. There would be many more adventures with Izuku and the predecessors in the future, but those could wait. The ninth user had earned a long rest and lots of hair ruffling from his over-enthusiastic family of ghosts.